Greetings, fellow Empyreans. It is I, Ashtarothi, and it is Friday, the end of another week, the beginning of another weekend, and it is good to see you on the Eve Universe Friday show. Today it is the Sobornost, Proven Sobornost Kybernaut edition. So we have three of the top people who are engaged in Pochven at this time. We want to talk a little bit about how things are going there and something about the event that just happened today, some of the current events, that is where the line between player action and CCP's action has very much been blurred. We'll dig into that. And then maybe speculate a little bit about the future, both in Eve and for the Triglavian Collective. So without further ado, I'm going to begin to introduce the panel. First of all, I just got myself some audio reverb. Was that somebody hot micing or was that my thing? Either way. All right, so on the top of the list, I have, once again, back from the depths below, Maldavius, the Lord of Stribog. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. I have been busy. I've heard you've been even more so.
It's been a hell of a day. A lot of fights, a lot of fun.
Every time I speak to you, you seem to be very busy. But thank you for taking time to sit down with us.
Absolutely.
From the other side of the triangle, we have a good friend of mine, the writer of Eve, or the original creator of Eve Onion, and the head of the Kybernaut Clade Corporation in game. So not me. If you're mad at the Kybernauts now, stop being mad at me. Be mad at him. Be mad at Opus Magnum. How you doing, man?
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for the introduction.
I thought you might like that one. And then you brought a +1 tonight. So I want you to let you introduce your +1.
All right, so I brought another alliance leader from Pochven. He's on the other side of the triangle.
Triangles
and
have three sides after all.
They do. So this is Zero. Take it away, Zero.
Hello there, Freds. I represent Breadfleet and the Interstellar Triglavian Collective, and we're like a small gang living in Pochven as well.
Very cool. All right, so there's been a lot going on. I guess I want to start actually today, or with what happened today, because that's what's freshest. And we do have Mal here, and I want to be very cognizant of his time on these matters. But so to give a little bit of backstory, a little over a week ago, I think, maybe even longer, Dutch Gunner from Arataka Research Consortium, who we've had on the show, who I've had on my show, he wanted to run a operation to get refugees allegedly out of Pochven. That there are populated systems, and this has been an ongoing thing. This is not the first time this has happened. This is just another time it has happened. And then on the forums, there was a back and forth between you, Maldavius, and him about whether or not this would be permitted by those inside. And it seemed like that was going pretty well, at least in a positive direction, would you say?
Yeah, it was going in a really positive direction. We were actually working on setting up a way to interact with them and have them out into the space and make the trade at the Triglavian Trading Tower. And then an NPC stepped in. Someone else in the lore stepped in and said, "No, this will not be allowed," which was pretty interesting to see. I was actually really into that.
Yeah.
So CCP stepped in, and what is this character's name? Do you have it up actually?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Something Foucault.
It's a wonderful name. Let me pull it up, because so both pieces of the name mean. I've been Googling the name. The name means something both when Googled together and individually, and also there's a lot of other stuff to it. But we'll get to the NPC in just a minute, or the name and stuff.
His first name is Seriatim.
There we go.
So for you glorious Triglavians out there, our intention was not to give them just refugees. We wanted to give them heavily indoctrinated refugees, and we had made this known to a bunch of Triglavian groups. So they'd come in and get a bunch of refugees, but they would all spread the word of like Zoria Triglav. It was the whole point. And then this kind of stamped in the middle of it. It was very fun, though.
The problem is that this forum post now has had so much conversation that like finding
Oh
the
yeah.
correct post is very difficult. Okay, I got it. All right, hold on. Things I should have done before the show, but I had a lot of other things to do. One might work.
It would have been so good though. It would have been so good. It's like, yeah, we're totally gonna do everything we can to help you. Totally take these guys off our hands.
Right. So again, your plan was to work together. You were okay with this,
Yeah.
and this was you had a plan for what to give them at that time. But then this guy shows up. So Sarah, how do you pronounce that word? Anyone? Because that's a word.
Soriatim? So-called?
Yeah.
Soriatim Folkot comes in and says, I speak for the internal Triglav revolutionary organization with the consent of the convocation of Triglav outside of the struggle. The weaving of Pochven continues and cladistic proving through the dialectics of the concrete is in effect. Conditions within Pochven are evolving towards the optimal for continued development of human potential within the struggle. There is no requirement for mass evacuations at this time. Organizations with a history of experimentation with forbidden hive linking and associations with capsuleers in favor of forbidden hive linking and dominance arrangements are not welcome in Pochven. Attempts to seize aspirant neurodnia and remove them from the proving will not be tolerated by the clades. Interference in the weaving and the struggle is Posh-lost activity. The proven Kybernauts are exhorted to defend Pochven from infection by forbidden hive linking and dominance ideologies. Subcommander Seratim Folkot. Now, before I hand this back to you guys, I want to. There's a lot to this text, and if there's some people here that this may be the first time that they've ever experienced or like actually seen the way the Triglavians speak without it being translated for them. So before we go any further, does anybody want to like try to sum up what you as a Kybernaut heard from this instruction?
This instruction to us was stop it. Do not work with them. Immediately, don't work with them. Get them out of the space. They're not allowed in Pochven. And that's exactly what we did. We went out and chased them out.
Right. So specifically, it says it accuses them of being an organization. There are two things that the Triglavians have shown absolute hatred for. They do not like the Saunchus nation because there's something about the hive linking. Hive linking is forbidden in their world for whatever reason, and that is the reason why they do not like Sancha first and foremost. The fact that Sancha then tried to corrupt them probably didn't help matters, but they had already have a thing against hive linking. And then in addition to that, the drifters in their text about the drifters, they refer to the drifters, vigilant Tyrannos, that whole shtick as being in a forbidden dominance arrangement. We're not 100% sure if that means something about how the other has enslaved the sleepers, or if there's something else in that they mean that makes that forbidden. We believe that it has something to do with enslavement because the Triglavians appear to have a really strong, like, free will. The only thing that can stop you is somebody literally defeating you, proving that you're wrong, as it were. So this seems to be an accusation that either Arataka Research Consortium is related to one of these two things or is related to those, are capsuleers in favor of forbidden hive linking and dominance arrangements. So maybe accusing them of being pro-drifter, which I'm not sure if that's true, but that might be a misperception of the convocation.
I don't think it has anything to do with Drifter because we've been against that. Ark has been against that. Like the only reason we were willing to work with Ark in the first place is because they were fighting against Drifters and not killing Triglavians. But there's some history there as far as I knew with Ark and specifically the Sancha. I don't know a huge amount about that. Maybe you would know more.
Interesting. So the only thing with Sancha that I know is that Sancha did attack and reinforce Arataka Research Consortium structure, and or rather, I can't remember if it was the Sancha that reinforced it the first time, but at the reinforcement, the Sancha showed up, and then Uriel, who was part of Arataka, I believe at the time, used the what is it? The semiosis console to communicate to the strategic troika from Svarog Clade, Kreshnik Svarog, and trying to call them in because it's like, hey, here's the Sancha, the guys that you're trying to kill. Come help us kill them, effectively. And while the trig did show up, they didn't. They actually seemed to attack Arataka and not really attack Sancha, which was really odd at the time. But there is also accusations that there could be a chunk of Svarog Clade that has been corrupted by Sancha, which is one of the reasons why this is such a big concern by the rest of the clades.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense then. It seems like it would be really related to that more than anything else. Like, if you're dealing specifically with Sancho and they're using the exact same terminology, saying hive linking, I would bet my money on that.
Yo, so if I can tinfoil a little bit here, my suspicion with this NPC suggesting, I don't think he means that Ark is necessarily, sympathetic to the Drifters, but the entire flow, the entire struggle, it represents an existential struggle against the Drifters. So being that Ark was sympathetic to EDI, perhaps they're seen as sympathetic to the Drifters kind of by association.
General Stargazer, who is also part of that group, is pointing out that night Drifters also attacked at the same time. And actually, ultimately, it was the Drifters that remained the longest. The Sancha got wiped out, the Triglavians self-destructed, and ultimately Arataka had to kill the Drifters. I remember, I wasn't streaming that, but somebody else was. Anywho, so Arataka Research Consortium does have a long history. Obviously, they have a long history also of fighting Drifters, but it seems another point here, and I think the biggest point is that what they're suggesting is that there is a process going on here, and this is a reference to that bioadaptation that we've been hearing about a lot in the lore, right? They are doing things to these guys. They are attempting to develop the human potential within the struggle. So I think that the real issue here isn't necessarily who it is that's doing the interference. It is, as they say at the very end, interfering with the weaving, which is the stabilization of Pochven, and the struggle. The struggle is the attempt through conflict or extreme pressure to discover the best route. It seems like that. Like the struggle is also within the clades, but in this case, they're referring to the people as being part of the struggle as well. Maybe that's because they see it as owning. They see them as owning those guys, so they're now part of their. Hey, those are our guys. Don't steal our guys. They're part of the struggle now.
Yeah, I mean, that could be it. That makes a lot of sense. It was very clear, though, the messaging was you need to not work with them. You need to get away from this. And
Correct.
That's exactly what we did. The moment that they chimed in, the convocations chimed in, we stepped away from the table. It was like, nope, this is over. And it's funny, too, because if they wouldn't have stepped in right there, we were kind of at the point where we were about to agree on terms together. Right. And if that would have happened, we would have followed through with it because we don't break agreements. So that would have been a really interesting and awkward place for us.
Well, right, yeah, it was in that. I mean, we already disseminated all the information. So it was a go as I saw it.
Yep.
Right. So then that was this morning, and a lot of people thought that was that. What happened next?
So what happened next is we actually had an encrypted data fragment that was obtained from the EOM capital fleets that were attacking in HiSec. That was from Mr. Frosty obtained it and then gave it to Torvik Ironsides inside of our alliance. And then Torvik Ironsides handed it to me to give to the convocation. So we ended up going to that NPC and giving it to him. So we set it up in Otella. I carried it over there in Aniki Tursa and handed it to him. And I've got a screenshot of the log that we had with him. I think I sent it to you, I believe. Yeah, I did. So we have now passed on that encrypted data fragment to the convocation through that character.
Just for clarity,
so
because
no getting rid of it.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. So that's been turned in, confirmed, etc. And just for clarity, you're saying convocation as in the convocation of Triglav, not convocation of Empyreans.
That is correct.
I did not intend for that to become a point of confusion, but we are where we're at, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the image for that. I'm
pulling it up.
Perfect.
Do we get anything in return for that?
No. They said The loyalty of your proven Kybernauts has been noted. Now I must confer with higher authorities. So that was his end result from that. I don't know what that means, but it means that we did a thing. And a thing has occurred. I'm putting it in chat there.
I got it. So the yellow text means basically an NPC actor, and this is a developer or GM or something, probably, given the importance of this, somebody like Delegate Zero, puppeting this character, putting the words in their mouth. So this is canonical event basically, and this happened in. Is this a local? Is this in local?
No, this was in a private message. So we took a 60-man fleet into there. I set up the drop location on the forums. So that's actually on the forums from posts that I made and he made. And then we took a 60-man fleet over there, docked up. I made the transfer, and then we went off to go do our fight.
Very cool. Okay, so when was your was Dutch Gunners supposed to be doing this today? Was today supposed to be the day that this event occurred?
For the transfer?
Yeah. For the rescue or whatever.
Oh, for the rescue, yes. So this was supposed to be happening later on today. They changed their timeline because they made their timeline public and they didn't stick to it. When they did that, we were already ready and people started blapping them out. I believe Kybernauts dropped on them first, and then we started making our way over there. When that happened, we found out that this NPC was talking in local, and I went and grabbed the token and started talking in the forums.
Got it. Okay, so what was the first indicator? What happened when it came to detecting that this fleet was actually happening? Does anybody have that story?
I think Opus would probably have that because you guys hit them first.
Yeah, we hit them first, so we knew their form times because they made it public. They did. We got word they were coming in. At that point, I was not there, but my rest of my alliance was, and they came in through wormhole, the wormhole, I believe it was, and then we basically just started chewing them up. We went for the barges and stuff first, the transports, and went from there.
And so you engaged on site because because the negotiations have been you knew from the clades that this was not allowed, and so you just fired on them right away.
Right, but at this point, we knew that we're not allowed to negotiate. We're not allowed to harbor anyone outside of Pochven. So they
What
were
system was
shooting.
this?
This was Otella. It's right outside of Kino's our home system.
Right.
Next door to Vola.
So you kill them. Did they have very much of a resistance? Did they have a support fleet with them?
There was a small one. We didn't lose much of anything at all. It was smaller than we expected, I believe. And at that point, we started sifting through the wreckage.
Okay, I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's when we found the Marines, right?
Right, that's when we found the Marines, the landing vehicles, the things to set up camp. Looks like there's a shuttle in every single one of these things.
Yeah, they were posing an invasion force, not an extraction.
Yeah. I was going to get to that. That's a very important piece to this puzzle. But I think I'm looking at this. Is it these two?
Yep.
It's the two Tyras and stuff like that. I don't see Arataka though. Is this? You have Edencom Assault Volunteers. Was this actually the same group?
Supposedly, yeah, it was Dutch Gunners group that's coming
Okay.
through.
Dutch Gunner was on grid in a pod, so yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, it does look like it would be the operation. And then, so I one of these stands out from the others just by glancing at it. So you've got 14 million, 16 million. This one's 84 million. So what's in the one that's 84 million? Well, this has yeah. Okay, here we go. So clearly, this is from an RP point of view, not a like a evac group. Because it's not medic or anything like that, but it has what 400 plus 390 Marines
Plus small arms crates.
Sorry, 3,000 Marines
with us crates of the high-tech small arms, and one of the other ones there's landing craft.
Okay, so one of the transports that were part of the group has all of that in it, and so that makes it
its own character.
that makes it to the forums, right? So the fact that this happens gets to the forums. Tiger freaks out. You bunch of liars! This isn't an This isn't an evacuation. It's an invasion. People report the Tyra. Everybody's accusations start being slung, including the NPC responds with, and this perfidy was predicted by the convocation. It is no surprise that capsular organizations bent on achieving forbidden power promote terrorism and war against the aspirant Narodnia. The Clades have shown great forbearance during the weaving of Pochven. Hunting in the forests of glorification has been restrained so far. I give fair warning. If the Clades are roused to hunting in the worlds of the forest, the blame will lie on those who intruded on the soil of the Cries. This part is the part that everyone should pay attention to. These lines, I know it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but these are the lines in which the blur between like people say, oh, what is good about knowing the lore? He's saying right here that if this behavior doesn't change, or if this path is continued in the story, the result of which is Triglavian minor victories will become significantly more dangerous. And perhaps more.
He's saying we're going to invade. Exactly.
Well, right. Specifically, the Forests of Glorification is their word for Triglavian minor victories specifically. What they're saying is, we haven't really been fucking with you much. We've been going easy on you. You fuck with us, we will fuck with you.
I mean, the thing that's best about it is it's literally them saying fuck around and find out. That's
which is great.
Right. So just recently, CCP patched the Triglavians to be way less aggressive in connections that they systems that they're connected to, because people were complaining about Triglavians, grabbing onto people or like killing, gate camping in perimeter or whatever, right? Well, they've been softened. This is suggesting that the NPCs may decide to retaliate upon interlopers into Pochven, which, I mean, take it for what you will. People want to impact the game, right? Like, what is, if you want to take it a different way, this shows that it gets to the convocation. So if you are Edencom, this should be an what is it? Hit dogs howl. Only hit dogs howl.
Honestly, I'd be pretty happy with that. Like, to be real with you, if we had more of a presence in these types of areas, because in Pochven, it really doesn't feel like Triglavians have a huge amount of presence. So having more force in there, more eyes on the lore for that kind of a thing going in that direction feels really good.
Yep. Yeah. But there's at least one more twist to this whole story where this is where things break down, okay? Like, so far we have a pretty normal story. Players want to put together a player event. CCP Delegate 0 finds out and fucks with it at the last second. Shenanigans ensue. We've seen this before. But then there's the Tyra with the militants. What the hell? Why is ARC doing this? Is ARC really is ARC in on it? This is a player organization. There's no reason for Dutch Gunner, the player, who I can tell you was not doing this for a shtick and is not happy with this result. I'll just put it that way. I want to talk to him on air about this at some point in the future, but this is his bedtime, I'm pretty sure. But like, what is going on? Which leads to our last twist, which I may need to find.
Who was the person that lost the Terra? Was it a plant?
Yeah.
Is that a real person? Like,
so they claim to be an independent Caldari operative.
Yeah. So the Tyra itself is Zoe Aneto of the Caldari civil group, Caldari State. Caldari civil group is. So this is a player corporation named the Caldari Civil Group with one person, them. Okay. And then let's see.
What if it's a plant? That would be actually amazing, frankly.
I believe it's a plant. I mean, based on Dutch's words and what we're finding out about it, I mean, this would be awesome.
Yeah, dude, I really don't think if ARC was going to invade the system, they'd they'd try to take a planet with 3,000 troops. Like, that's just stupid. They're smarter than that.
All right, hold on. Let me find the actual part, because yeah, the okay, so this name, which I can't pronounce, who I don't think this is like really spoiling too much to say that's I believe that's Uriel, who's also a name I can't pronounce.
Yeah, that's Uriel.
So this is a guy who knows what he's talking about when it comes to this stuff. I'll just put it that way. So he posted an image, supposedly from the board, that says, I must apologize for the deception. As a third party, a member of the initiative to scout and establish forward operating bases in Triglavian occupied territories, for several weeks, filaments have been used to gain entrance to seed shielded bases on planets in Pochven. ARC was another means to this objective of the Caldari. So
that's really cool, actually.
So maybe it's starting to really look like one player was starting to has been fucking around in Pochven, and then this happened, and he tried to use it as cover, and then got killed with all this stuff in his cargo hold, and so now there's accusations, and of course, there's plenty of reasons to call Arataka Research Consortium, corrupt or whatever. If you really wanted to start to tinfoil in the same way that we do about PKN or anything like that, you'd be like, but they showed up only when the drifters did, and they've been really interested in drifter tech since the very beginning. You could totally tinfoil on them if you wanted to. And so this is hit a level where it's sometimes Fonsui used to get frustrated because it was hard to sometimes know what was player lore and therefore shouldn't be really paid attention to by serious folk versus the game lore, the official canon of the game, and it's always been kind of muddy, but it's things like this that just make you go, blah.
I mean, the thing is if this is a real player, this is really, really, really interesting. It fits the narrative super, super well. They're clearly making a post that makes it seem like they're in on it, but it fits so well into the grander scheme of things that happen on the same day. So it makes me wonder, is this really a player? Is this a real person? If you are, amazing. If you're not, amazing CCP.
Yeah, I mean, this is some next level lore stuff right here. I mean, this is why we play Eve, right?
Yeah, it's worth noting that General Stargazer pointed out, and I just want to stress that Dutch presented what he provided, and that was what the rest of them had. And then this other ship, he denied providing it, and then that it's allegedly Sveja, god damn it, whatever, Uriel, who is now formally on the Triglavian side. This character is pro-Triglavian, at the very least. Presented that information, and so yeah, it's something to watch. But now you guys have the militants, right?
Yes, Kybernauts has the militants, and we are in negotiations now with Dutch Gunner to try and deliver them back, because we don't want them as hostages, and so hopefully the next coming days we'll be transferring those militants back to ARC, or someone else from Meetingcom.
Isn't that a little bit like Loki basically denying his denial? Because it's he's like, those aren't ours, and you're like, we're giving you back your militants. Here's your militants that you brought.
If I can, the flip side of that coin would be, if indeed ARC is innocent, this really discredits their organization. So turning those militants over is a great chance for them to interrogate them and maybe hold them accountable.
If this is in fact a state actor, it may be worth attempting to coordinate with them. They've been having their own issues. Yeah, this is. I honestly don't. It'll be worth paying attention to this thread and things as they develop, because I legitimately feel like this happened at a perfect time, that it's very possible that CCP can use this and it'll just continue to dovetail. It may end up being nothing, but the thing about these kinds of events is that they always seem to end up meaning something eventually. years later, you're like, oh, that was part of this chain of things. So I'm super interested in this. But okay, so you still have the militants. You've turned over the data from so that is from the EOM attacks, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it was from the EOM attacks that was picked up by Mr. Frosty and then given to Torvik Ironsides and then given to me. And then that was handed off to the NPC by me.
And that was just like literally just opportunism. You're like, oh my god, I have an NPC to talk to. Here, take it. Is that?
Well, we always wanted to hand it to, the Triglavians. We always wanted to hand this over to the Convocation, and we never really had a chance for it. And this posed like a perfect opportunity. Like, there's an NPC logged in. This is a great time to interact. Like, this is exactly the moment that we needed. And
yeah,
so
that's what I was saying.
messaged
Like,
him on the forums, and he, set it up. Yeah.
You haven't had an NPC contact, so as soon as you see one, you're like, oh, hold on, I got something for you. Yeah, I get it.
Yep.
Cool,
Yep.
cool. Okay, so I have him pulled up right now. As I said, Seriatim Falcult. Now, let's talk about this dude a little bit. First of all, you talked to him privately, and then he also said some stuff in local. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, he said a bunch of stuff in local. I wasn't there for that, but I know the Kybernauts were and some of our guys were.
Does
I
anybody?
can get what he said.
If anybody was
copy-pasted in the chat earlier.
If anybody that you know was in local, they will have it in their chat logs.
There
I've
it
got
is. It's in
here we go.
chat right now.
As predicted by the Convocation, the evacuation is nothing more than a cover for continued terrorism against those on the planets who would join with the Clades. Propaganda comes in many forms. Do not disdain that which aids the flow of Virage, even if it appears trivial and transient to those such as proven Kybernauts.
This is why
There's
I
probably a
think that
reaction to
character is an actor.
Oh.
I actually think that it is.
No, it is an NPC actor.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he's an NPC actor.
No, I mean the other one is what I'm saying. The one with the
Oh,
tail.
Zoe?
Because it fits so well with what he said there, the NPC actor.
Well, NPC actors are... Delegate Zero is really good at banter. I'll put it that way.
For sure.
One wonders, how long did that Caldari Corp exist for before this? Was it like a brand new thing, or had it been around for a while?
That's a good point. Let's go look.
So the other thing is this NPC actor has been part of the Convocation of Triglav for 333 days, which I love that. So enjoy that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got a long employment history. I was looking at that.
Well, so when
dude.
when CCP creates somebody, they can set it to be whatever they want, right? So maybe this guy didn't even exist yesterday, but they can still set it to be that. But yeah, they made it so that the day that he started posting was 333 days in the corp.
It's very smart.
Yeah, we could talk about some of these details. So on here it says that he is Seriatim Falcult, known alias of Lieutenant Colonel Simon Val Falcott, Subcommander Internal Triglavian Revolutionary Organization, Integral, which I can't pronounce ever. Known members of that name, leadership echelon, claims affiliation with the Convocation of Triglav. Integral links with Triglavian Collective confirmed by Edencom Intelligence, Concord Directive Intelligence Agency by Federal Intelligence Office. So the other thing I noticed about him is that if you look in his employment history, he was in the Convocation for 333 days, but then before that he was in the Ostakon Agency, and then before that in the Crux Special Task Group, which the Crux Special Task Group stood out to me because that was one of the mercenary organizations that was used as cover by the EOM. That was the group of Galente that attacked the Amar system of Genofi, whatever. And then he left for the Ostakon Agency, which is a mercenary corporation that has made a practice of hiring dishonorably discharged members of the Galente militia or military. The Ostakon Agency is considered a rather suspect organization by the Galente media, and they are regularly run stories about its activities. Unperturbed, the agency carries on with its business of contracting soldiers and the other personnel for its services in conflict throughout New Eden. You know why this agency is important? Anyone know why this?
No.
It's been used once before that I know of.
When else was it used? Because I know it's like a Galente mercenary corporation.
It's the reason why the agency is named the agency.
Oh.
The agency was bought by a mysterious organization that was puppeted by the Ostrakhan agency.
So at the face of this person, though, right? We don't necessarily understand if this is actually he is who he says he is, though, right? I mean, he's got a weird past. He could be a planner or a spy himself.
Well, he is in the convocation of Triglav. Like, he's in the proper NPC corporation.
Yeah.
But
That
yeah,
the
has-
only reason we made the transfer was because he's actually in that corporation, which it would
Right.
be very unlikely that would be a plant or a spy, considering who the Triglavians are.
Absolutely. I wouldn't necessarily call this like a double agent or something like that. But you see somebody who is in the Navy, then in the Federal Intelligence, then in this special task group, which that task group was built to defend that constellation, which is the home constellation of Luminaire, because there was an archaeological dig that happened at that time, and this was very early in the wormhole. Like, it was in 2006. I think it was actually one of the precursor, like, very first effects of dust and wormhole space. But either way, they kind of fell out of light, except for there's another potentially dishonorably discharged member of the Crux Special Task Group that went on to become a major player in Upwell. So that might be noteworthy too. But either way, this guy was part of the Crux Special Task Group for quite some time, and then he left for the much less prestigious mercenary organization, and then finally a year ago to the convocation of Triglav. Whew. I'm trying to think. March the 15th. I think that was right after Chapter 3 started, maybe? I don't know. Either way. So very interesting character. So his name, the first word of his name, seriatim, means taking one subject after another in regular point by point, as in, it is proposed to deal with these matters seriatim. Okay? And then his last name is Foucault, whatever. Which
Foucault.
Foucault. Thank you. Which is probably French then, if I'm guessing, right? Because he's Galente, of course. I should have known. So that seems to be a reference to potentially Michael Foucault, which was a political activist protesting government abuses of human rights around the world, which jives if you believe that he fell over to the Triglavians around the time that Vale fell, right? Like, as we know that when Vale fell, a lot of Galentians just kind of defected over to the Triglavians.
That's even more interesting then.
Yeah.
Because if he's the one that's really into, uncovering, human abuses and things like that, and he's on the side of Triglavians, that even shows even more that nothing is going wrong on those planets, frankly.
Well, so the last name is probably less on point. It's like calling somebody Calvin. Like, it's not necessarily saying that he is,
sure,
the actual Calvinist
but it still aligns
theory,
with the storyline that we have here.
Right, but
which
names
makes it
are important.
interesting.
So, but at the very least, that first name is changed. Like, his last name is his proper French name, but his first name, that idea of like taking things point by point, was selected by him. So that's very interesting in and of itself. But also, if you Google the names together, like if you just Google his name, it just happens that Foucault, I can't pronounce French words.
It's Foucault.
There's a book called From Seriatim to Consciousness and Back Again, A Theory of Descent, which is interesting because we know that CCP likes to be hoity-toity sometimes with their references. But then finally, the other piece to this whole thing is that dialectics of the concrete is capitalized in his quote, and we actually haven't seen them use that. That's not a term that they've used ever before. So I Googled that word too, and that is a different book called Dialectics of the Concrete, A Study on Problems of Man and World, a study of the philosophy and history of science. So, I'm sure it's all nothing and coincidence.
There are no coincidences.
Only
It's
Zool?
especially interesting because the Triglavian philosophy rejects these,
Hold on, hold on.
imbalances of power.
People are saying that my screen might be frozen. Hold on.
I mean, it's one of those things though. Is like digging too deeply into Google searches for something may not always be the answer. Like I build a lot of crypto puzzles, right? Like I'm really into building that kind of content in game designs, building crypto puzzles and making sure that all works. If the solution for finding information about an NPC or something else in a game isn't elegant, it may not be the right answer. Doing Google searches for him doesn't feel very elegant to me. It feels like there are other words that people use that are known words. So I'm probably not going to believe any of the connections from like just random Google searches just yet, and more turn inward to the stuff that's in the game first.
So sorry to disagree with you, Mal. I have to agree with Ashtarothi on this one. This is very clearly a reference. The fact that Foucault was deeply involved in anti-authoritarian philosophy, and he clearly uses terminology that the real Foucault used. I think that the link is very clearly there.
Yeah,
CCP
the
has
thing that I can
precedence
see
of
is
doing
like
this.
the only thing that I can see is more of a reference rather than anything any deeper than that, which does make sense.
Fair.
But
Right. So
Well,
I'm just
reference
not.
can still point to something though.
So just to be clear, the way that CCP has always treated these things is that kind of the legends, the words of these things have echoed through time, but have largely been lost of their meaning. There's actually a really good discussion by CCP Drop Bear from years ago I could pull up and read if we needed to. But basically, like, if you think about how we use words and how like descriptive words become the name of something, which becomes a word on its own right, oftentimes in Eve, the name of things implies something about it or suggests something about its like history or its lineage, not necessarily a direct like on the nose, right? Like a basilisk isn't some sort of healing creature, but it is a legendary creature, which the Caldari like to name their stuff off of legendary characters.
So I think with that in mind, what do you think is the future for this character? Because we have quite a lot of information, we have a lot of references for it. We've seen him interact here, handed him the token and things like that. I'm wondering if we could just kind of think about what the next step for this would be. Because if we have all of that and we think that those references are the most accurate, then we can kind of decide what he most likely will be used for next.
Well, I have a thought on that.
Sure.
Well, ever since the gates went down, our semiosis conduction consoles have been silent. So in a way, I feel like this character represents a new way for the convocation to interact with the trig movement.
Bingo.
Yeah, I agree. I think that CCP didn't want to have Zoria post on the forums, and most organizations have their representatives, and especially with like what happened last week. Was it only last week? It's been so like this has been such a crazy couple of weeks, man. But with Chalkade was for 90% of his lifespan a forum actor and basically the representative of the Khanid kingdom. Now I assume that he's going to be the representative of the equilibrium of man. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but like CCP likes to have these actors in place, and the fact that the convocation of Triglav didn't have a face probably was an issue. And it's very clear that CCP is kind of putting the last pieces in position so that way they can begin doing the storytelling that they're wanting to do in Foundations and beyond. So I'm assuming that that's more of what this is doing is character establishment, so that way it can be used for whatever purposes later.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to see what they take, like where they take this. Honestly, I really like the idea of putting NPC actors in. Like I've always seen Eve as D&D in space, right? And having any type of NPC actors, having any type of this interaction with the DM, which is CCP, is really really cool. Like this stuff rocks. Honestly, I want to see more of this in the game. It's literally fantastic.
Yeah, and they have been doing this. I mean, like I said, like they've done this forever with all kinds of different NPC actors. It's usually a little bit more sporadic, and it's been largely Amar and Mimitar focus historically, partially because Pi and Urshikon and Electus Matari and others have invested their time and energy and effort and attention into it, and so that's what CCP Delegate Zero and others have worked with. But what we're seeing here, especially in Foundations, with the establishment of all, like coming out with 4 new videos, really putting a lot of focus into making sure fleshing out the characters of the different leaders of the empires, the four empires' top people as well. Um, I've said for a long time that I feel like this is all like for the last 2 years they've just been basically doing world building for their next shooter or like how they're going to expand their IP when that's ready. And this feels like a large part of that, but it also just feels like an overall effort by CCP to just give love to their world building. There's always been a lot of holes missing. There's always been a lot of like it's there and it has a lot of potential and it's super rich, but how little that was there, how often you could dig a little bit deeper only to find nothing to answer it. The fact that there's no NPC to interact with. If you needed to send an email to the convocation of Triglav, you'd just kind of be shouting into the void right now. If you wanted to message the president of the Federation, you could do that, and that character may respond and has responded historically. But the convocation never had that. I don't know. That might be too optimistic, though. What do you guys think?
I am super duper hyped on this because every instance I've seen of these beautiful lore events has been CCP writing a story. The other day when the Minmatars bombarded that planet, that was just very clearly CCP's narrative. It was great. But what this represented to me was a direct interaction with a player-driven narrative. This was a mission that ARC set up completely independent of CCP, and this agent of the convocation responded to that in-game happening. It wasn't something they necessarily, just crafted from the ground up. They were responding to what we were doing, which means to me they're watching and they care about what happens in Pochven. That's really awesome.
And that part is really important to me too, because a lot of the Triglavian players that live out here, many of them feel like this place is sort of abandoned right now. A lot of people are waiting for the next thing that actually helps make Pochven a better place to live in, and it's really nice to see this type of just small amount of interaction to know, hey, you are here. We do know that you're here. We know that this place is, we're going to be working on this place, and now we've got this NPC actor to show you that there is more story to go on here because most of the people that moved into Pochven, we care about the Triglavian story. And seeing this is like, hell yes, this is exactly the type of thing that we wanted. We want more of this type of interaction that helps us tell the story of the Triglavians versus Edencom, that allows those NPC actors to come in and actually, make that have an amplification on it, make it more cool. This is great. This is exactly what we wanted.
And to be like you put your money where your mouth is, because as it was pointed out, the very first thing you did was like, we have an NPC actor now. I know what to do with this, and moved that story behind. And you know what? I don't think anybody thought that one out. I don't think CCP thought of that one. I didn't think of that. I don't think anybody thought, well, what if we hand over this encrypted shit to the trig? Like, I don't think. It was. Congratulations. Yeah, I don't know if anybody predicted that one.
That was literally the first thing that we thought about. Like the moment that I found out that Torvik had the thing, I was like, we're going to get that to CCP in some way. Like we have to give this to the convocation in some way. And the moment I found out we had an NPC actor, it was like, go. That's it.
Yeah. And to be clear, so like the way that these things get used, one of the previous ones of these doodads was given over to the Minmatar, which is one of the reasons why it was the Minmatar delegate to the Concord that was like the one presenting the majority of the information. That's not that huge of a impact on the story, but I mean, it's true. That person now knows that the Minmatar were the ones that were right because he cared. And you know what? It was a doodad that was otherwise worthless, and the only thing that he got to do with it was choose which empire it was. That's actually kind of cool. There's a lot of this stuff going on, though, especially with like the stargates and all that sort of stuff, which we also want to talk about. But let's circle back on some of the things that he said in this message, because he says the dialectics of the concrete, which I haven't digested that one yet. That's fine. He says the weaving of Pochven continues, and cladistic proving through the dialectics of the concrete is in effect. So let's just assume for a second that the dialectics of the concrete is the process, is whatever they're doing to the people. That's the name of the process. That's the biomutation. Can we agree on that assumption?
I'm really interested to see what they're doing with that. Like we've long wondered like how they're doing things to people on the planet. Like we've talked about that kind of stuff before. We've seen them talking about these sorts of things. I want to know what's going on the planet too. That's really interesting. Like really, really interesting.
So dialectic means a discourse between two or more people holding different points of view about a subject, but wishing to establish the truth through reasoned methods of argumentation.
Are we
Would
sure
that
that's
be
the
because of the
actual?
discourse we had with Ark?
That is
Yeah.
that is what the word dialectic comes from or means. And remember, dialectic and concrete are capitalized. This is a proper noun. Dialectic of the
It's a
concrete
book.
is the name of something. Well, it's a name of a book in our world, but what I'm saying is that this is a process that this is something that they're doing, and they're saying cladistic proving through the dialectics of the concrete is in effect. So whatever the concrete is, the exchanging between them is how they're doing cladistic proving. And on top of this, the weaving of Pochven continues. So the weaving of Pochven is the solidification of Pochven. There's a concept that Pochven isn't done yet. People are saying like, oh, well, why isn't the next thing happening? But there's actually a physical process that is being undergone at this time in the stars of Pochven, and therefore manipulating the spatial temporal like area around Pochven that is make it. And so at this point, you could almost think that Pochven is currently in a curing point, right? Like it's not done,
Yeah.
but it's coming along.
Definitely doesn't feel like it's done. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely doesn't feel like it's done. And it's really cool that not only are they working on this, but they're tying it into the lore in some way. The NPC, actor shows that this is happening. They're using it through terminology in the forums and in game. Like, that's exactly, like, that's fantastic. That's better than
It's a
just like,
carrot we needed.
lol, here's a patch, it's fixed. Like, this is so much more interactive and more interesting, frankly.
And this is
Right,
also
and
very consistent with what they said before, because they did say that like this was only the beginning, right? That Bouillon shall come through Pochven. Pochven means soil. This is just this is the beginning. They still need to plant the plants.
Like
And
watermelons.
I have a very strange tinfoil too, since we've gotten into the connections to the real life philosophy. A couple of words stood out to me. You pointed out rightly that what do you call it? The use of the concrete, the dialectics of the concrete. I mean, the author of that book was himself someone who was reinterpreting Marxism. It was like a variation of like left libertarianism almost. And then you look at the word he uses for himself, sub commander. That matches with some. That's the title that I use on my character in game, because leaders in left anarchist groups like Subcommandant Marcos of the Zapatistas. So it suggests that there might be a political structure that leans left or has some kind of tie to left-leaning philosophy.
Saccharine affliction got it, and I can't believe I've missed this. So, in the Velis Clade proving complex description, is that where this is? Yeah, it says Triglavian occupation of space station typically involves converting much of the interior from its former purpose. The Clades apparently being inclined to use the sea station for their own ends rather than destroy a useful asset. This station has been transformed into a facility devoted to the various forms of proving being undertaken by the controlling clade and its subclades. These procedures appear to be a complex mix of testing, ritual, and philosophical discourse, a form of concrete dialectics aimed at determining the worth of individuals, groups, theories, ideologies, technology, social practices, and more besides. Okay.
That's a pretty standard description. Like, there's a lot of stations inside of Pochven that say that.
Yep.
So I don't know if that one is specifically unique.
No, it's not. But the words concrete dialectics. So they're saying that their testing is a form of concrete dialectics. So I think that we're reading way too deep into these words. I think that concrete dialectics is just a thing that we just don't know, that we're not very familiar with that phrase, and therefore their dialectics of the concrete is basically their sorting process aimed to determine the worth of individuals, groups, theories, ideologies, technologies, social practices, and more.
I think it's probably like we're probably reading into it really heavily because it was capitalized, and that's really easy to read into it that way. Like, if it wasn't capitalized, it probably wouldn't be that much of a big deal.
Well, it does, like, they have a tendency to capitalize words like that
when they're important.
When it's a term that they use, like they give titles to things, right? Like a Kybernaut, that might be like, there might be Kybernauts with a lowercase k, or a good example is actually they sometimes refer to Neurodnia as in people, right? Hey, don't take our Neurodnia, no capitals. but the Narodnia of this of da 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 what had this happen to them, or if you refer to the Sobornost Narodnia, that's now a title of a person, so that becomes a pronoun or a group of people, I should say. So it designates whether or not they're using it as a descriptor or as a pronoun. Either way. My point is, what we're seeing here is they are currently undergoing continued formation of Pochven, and this idea of finding who among the populations, weeding out the wheat from the chaff, and allowing those who are able to be evolved to proceed through the struggle and achieve some greater level is incredibly important to their goals and their current objectives in Pochven. Another thing that they refer to them as aspirant Narodnia. There's several references that suggest that the people that are undergoing these processes are choosing to do so. That this is almost like our process of becoming, capsuleers, right? Like if you think about it, there's a lot of correlation between the process of becoming a capsuleer, the training, the exercises, the 1% of the 1%. You have to be biologically correct. You have to have the money. You have to have the physical capabilities. All this. You have to be smart enough, fast enough, all this kind of stuff. And then still undergo all of this training, and then still decide to kill yourself in order to become a capsuleer. Only the best will be chosen. This feels like just a parallel of that, but a mass population, and they seem to think it's a good thing. How do the Kybernauts feel about this?
We think it's a great thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're Triglavian, so I want to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like, what are you going to do with them? Let's find out.
Yeah, let's find out.
Yeah, we
took the space, and yeah,
one of the big expectations.
I think the other thing too is like, what happens to us, right? Like, we helped the formation of Pochven. We created this space. We live here. We're defending it against the outsiders. Is the same thing going to be for us?
It's an interesting question, especially when you think about what the bioadaptation is. You got the suits from doing well during invasions, and that technically could have stuff that is related to that process, built into it, as with the other, like the suit that you get when you do like Recruit a Friend. It says that stuff is disarmed. I'm not sure if it says that on the one that the Triglavians gave out. Either way. Yeah, it does not. Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
I'm wearing it,
ours
so
is a weapon. Yeah,
we'll find out together.
But I'm gonna try taking it off. Can you take it off when you put it on?
I never will, and I never would.
I haven't tried in a while. No. But it is worth noting that like Pochven isn't Bouillon. Like the flow of Bouillon to the ancient domains goes through Pochven. This is to prepare Pochven for what is to come. And if we see the amount of destabilization in space-time that is just caused by what they've done already, it seems like they're preparing these guys for much more high-pressure environments, storm planets and such. And so if they're bringing more of the abyss or something along those lines to K-space, as it were, to put it in a simple way, if Bouillon, either if somebody needs to go through certain mutations to be able to go to Bouillon, or maybe to make Bouillon safe to be fully realized in Pochven, it's going to be interesting to see. So here's a question, though.
I mean, one of the things we know about that too is like all of the home systems actually have a third gate, and that third gate doesn't go anywhere right now. It's our anticipation that that's going to go to Beyond. And for anybody out there who is like, oh, the standings have no meaning, I know a lot of you guys feel that way. Standings have no meaning. There's nothing that we gain from it. Anyone can go anywhere in Pochven right now. The gates to the home system still require 7.0. There is a reason for that. CCP clearly wants you to have standings to go to those systems. There's the last bastion for Triglavian content right now. Get 7.0, or you're going to miss out on whatever comes next.
We still encourage everyone to keep their standings up. Keep grinding them. It's important.
Because, you are going to be missing out on whatever happens when they finally release that. It would be very foolish not to do it.
Absolutely. And to be clear, like especially for pro Triglavian in Pochven, as much as I'm sure it sucks for you guys to have the gates open now, like you still have the home systems, at least, especially Kino in particular. And so I think that
Because
that's
you guys have an
designed to
NPC
be,
station there, yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
like it's designed to be a fallback position for only the most loyal that is very, very, very hard to push out of. But that actually, why don't we just use this as a transition point? First of all, I have things over things. I have Rigsy online. Gory Xander came in with a raid. Hold on, let me redo this one. Glorification unfit, mortification unfit. Gory Xander, you are glorified. Thank you, and welcome to all of your people and all of the people who are joining and following. Thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole with you online. I'm currently discussing with various members of the Triglavian, pro-Triglavian movement about the changes in Pochven, and I was just transitioning over to that topic. Actually, we were talking about the recent events, that what's been going on today in Pochven, which was very interesting. But I'm also interested in kind of what has been going on more broadly in Pochven. Last week, the gates opened. Everyone freaked out. Maldavius and your crew killed everybody for a few days.
It was pretty good. We had over 200 kills, and we were the 15th most dangerous system in all of EVE for 24 hours. We showed it was nuts.
So have things settled down at all? Is Pochven the place to be? Should everybody go there this weekend?
We immediately went to all of the other systems in Pochven, and we made all of the rats dangerous in there because there's a way to do that. And suddenly, no one wanted to come to Pochven anymore, just as we like it.
People thought they wanted to come in until they realized that, oh, it actually is dangerous. You just can't...
no, it died down within about 48 hours immediately. So worked out.
Do I get to know
all it took was a couple of drifter kills.
What exactly are you? Because you spawn like the boss drifter or something?
No, it's not about spawning units. It's about making them very angry.
Fair enough.
A way to rouse them up.
Yep.
Oh,
so I mean,
are you do you preset their doomsday?
No, nothing like that. I don't even honestly. When there's a doomsday in grid, we just leave. That thing's horrifying.
You can dodge
it. No, if an NPC shoots that guy and he has you targeted and you're not ready to dodge, you're dead.
Yeah. I died on a Stratios the other night because of one.
I died in a warp. Feels good.
Oh.
All my giblets came out, dude. It was awful.
This is Pochven, by the way. Like these are regular occurrences that you just can't avoid sometimes. It's just life in Pochven.
So, yeah, no, that's how it is. It's space hell, and we love it.
So, opening the gates has had a really interesting impact. I mean, we come from a slightly different perspective. Stribog is a very well organized, machine. They got a lot of pilots that can handle a pretty significant threat. We're a lot smaller. We don't have the numbers, we don't have the organization or the FCs that they do. But even for us, this has been quite a positive thing so far. The exposure to a lot of new people who don't necessarily understand the space has been great practice hunting. I've gotten a lot of kill marks in the last couple weeks. My pilots used to be high sec miners, and now they're getting all this PvP, and we're hardening and growing as an organization. My fear is that the lack of standing protection on the gates will expose us to existential threats from greater outside organizations. But that was going to happen eventually anyway.
I think the biggest fear that I have is not even about the gates opening themselves. It's about the fact that a lot of players now feel like they don't need to align themselves with Triglavian content. They don't need to grind standings. They don't need to be invested in this. They're like, the gates are open. Why do I care? Right. I think that the gates opening in this way is a good thing for the region. I just think it was premature. You have to add the next carrot before you take away this thing, or players have no reason to keep grinding. And we see that a lot now. We even have players that are like, between 6 and 7.0, they're like, what if we went and ran a world arc and then grind our standing back up because we don't even really need it now? That's something that is, I don't think that's good. I think that's really, really bad. If players are feeling that way, that's a negative thing. Well, so, yeah.
The thing, too, with the world arc, though, is that it actually affects your standings in some ways you can't get back, we've discovered.
That's a meme. That's not real.
Is it not really? To the convocation of Trig, you get that back?
No. Yeah, you get it back.
It was... Okay. We actually talked about this the other day, Maldavius, and I think you hit it on the head. It's like my real gripe with this change isn't the change itself. I actually like the change, but what sucks now is that everybody who put in the work to grind those standings, including new pilots who've come to Pochven since Invasion, their time was wasted. There was no reason to do that. It kind of sucks.
It's
Well, it's
unlocked a
not
really
wasted.
other. It's another weird thing that it's unlocked as well. If we go and run a dread site, which we don't run as many as we did before because it's quite dangerous now, we have to check to make sure every single person in the fleet has positive standings with Triglavians. Because if they land in that room with the dreads, like in the dread site, and the Zernitra comes down, it will kill everyone and then kill all of the Logi that healed that person as well if they don't have positive Triglavian standing.
Oh no.
And that is awful to have to deal with because the gates don't require standing, so you have to check every single pilot. And if someone does not, tell the truth, everyone in the fleet dies. It's a nightmare. So that does suck.
So, but hold on, because has this helped you guys at least for like recruitment at all? Because like people no longer require 3.0 just to come join your organization, right?
We're getting about the same amount of recruitment as we did before. Some new people were quite interested in it. They were interested in coming to the space. They came into the space, not being invested in the Triglavian stuff, and then they go, "Oh God, it's horrifying in here," and then left. We did have a group that was already going to join us. We just got another subcorp that joined in. They were already grinding standings, so like that didn't change much. Honestly, in overall in terms of recruitment, it hasn't changed a huge amount. The only thing that it's done is allowed our allies to come in to support us better.
That's true. Yeah, it's not really changed anything. In fact, we still push the standings grind, so it's
Yep.
business as usual, at least for internally for us as an alliance.
Yeah, the standings grind has changed for us. We don't sit on the wormhole and farm anymore like we used to.
Well, right.
Now it's going around the triangle killing stuff, doing that kind of a thing. So it's a more interesting standings grind than it was. I'll say that, but dreads have become much more complicated in terms of management because of this.
Yeah,
Right. I was going to ask about that. Like, I actually wanted to have Opus on here. Sorry for interrupting you. You were going to say a point. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the observatory flashpoints and the dread sites and how it's. I mean, it has, I guess, put a damper on that content, but with the other content, people coming through, and it's really made us from PVE more PvP, which is a good thing.
Yeah. So yeah, and I want to just take as an aside, one of the original reasons why I was having you on the show, why we started planning this out in the first place, was obviously 2 weeks ago I had the tax guy on, and then last week I had Mal on to talk about his side. And the thought was I'd have Opus on to be like, the third side of the triangle. Let's talk about it. Obviously, a lot has happened between now and then, and so I don't even know if that's relevant anymore. But I do want to give you an opportunity, Opus, to say your thoughts on that. But more importantly, update it to: is this, and more broadly, not just to Opus, is this still a problem? Has this made taxing worse? Is it not even a thing anymore? What's going on?
So it's not really made it worse. It's something that if you don't know it's a thing, you have to be taught to do it, right? It's not something you inherently know how to do. So there's a couple of characters that you've interviewed that teach people how to do. Is such a problem? We don't run them as much anymore, so they're not in space as much as they used to be. At least trying to slide into the obs sites to steal the payouts. It does happen from time to time. We run them, but because of just the nature of the gates being open and the more danger, we just don't do them as often. So the frustration is not as high. Um, that's really the only thing we've seen with it. We still try to shoot these people on sight, try to keep them away, but it's not as big a problem as it used to be because they can't do as much because we don't do them as much.
Yeah, the thing is it's less dealing with them less, but the amount of them when you do run into them is much more. So on average, we're getting between 5 and 10 of these people exploiting the site each time. And some of them, to their credit, actually will try to PvP you, which is great. We want to PvP over the site. That's fantastic. But there's always going to be between 7 and 10 people. Like, of those, maybe 2 of them will try to PvP you, and the rest of them are just going to be at 5,000 kilometers cloaked up and then decloak the moment the site ends and get a payout and then recloak and leave. So there's no real counterplay to that kind of stuff.
Which is the frustrating part.
Yeah, that's something I really want CCP to look at this. It should work just like incursions, and incursions work the way if the fleet that does the highest damage gets the payout. Just do that here. Easy. It's the same mechanic.
Well, we've been back and forth about this. I feel like that's a fundamental difference between invasion and incursion. It'd be interesting to see that change now. I mean, it is obviously a different time, but I mean, there is a reason why it is the way it is. But
so, are you saying that you think that CCP finds it valid gameplay that someone decloaks 5,000 kilometers away and gets half of your money?
no, No.
You see what I'm saying?
No, I agree. No, but the idea that somebody can come in and get payout for participation, regardless of whether or not you're in the fleet, was the piece of it. The incursions are lent themselves to their own problems, which may not be problems in the modern era, but that's what I'm saying. Like I'm just saying, like, it wasn't an accident, it wasn't a bug, it was a way that invasion sites were different than incursion sites.
So actually what it was is it used to be this way. It used to be the way that I'm describing with incursions. It changed in Invasion Phase 3. It changed in Invasion Phase 3 because we all complained as a community because Logi pilots weren't getting paid. It was the same problem that we were having there. So they changed the mechanics during Invasion Phase 3 where everyone was getting paid. Do you remember that?
All participants...
They changed it for a while where everyone got paid on grid.
That's true.
Weird.
That's true.
And then they changed it again. So it's changed a few times.
It has always been true that the payout of the site is given to all participants of the site, the first 59 participants of the top 59 participants of the site.
The part that's really weird about this is if someone warps off grid and then warps back, they still get a payout.
That's the part that I believe
out of the site and then back.
That's broken.
That's the part that I think that they said that
well, it's all broken, but
shouldn't be done. But either way, we're not.
I gotta tell you, man.
Actually, I want to one last thing about that though. I'm very proud of the fact that, like, the day after we did that, CCP we were like, what CCP needs to do is put up an exploit notification. Just be done with it. Next day, exploit notification.
I'm pretty happy with that. So thank you, CCP, for putting up the exploit notifications specifically for people who were denying the site from being spawned. There is a horrible gameplay way to do that where you stop the site from ever spawning for the next 24 hours. And they put up an exploit notification next 24 hours. So thank you for doing that. Please look at this exploit with stealing people's ISK. It is awful. Like, it is actually awful. I want to fight over these sites. I want to have a PvP engagement. I don't want to have this. It's toxic and garbage.
Yeah, I would assume that the intended behavior would be that once you've cloaked, that would, like, reset your qualification, because cloaked ships don't get it. You have to decloak at the last second. But yeah, we've always had leeches and shitbirds like this, even in the earliest days. Corvettes were pretty common. But this is, of course, again, it's a different scale, and it's also a different situation, so it may require some thinking about. Either way, but so if nobody's running these sites, and this was the predominant way that people were making ISK in Pochven, what do you guys do with your day? Just gate camp all day, or are you running the other sites?
To be honest with you, a lot of us have been finding content outside of Pochven, and one of the things I've been telling our people is, you know, if CCP made this change to find out what's going to happen, and then they're not doing anything about the Seagulling exploit on top of it, they're probably just going to wait for the MER. You know, when the MER comes out at the end of this month and they see that the region is making dramatically less ISK than it was before, maybe they'll make a change at that point. And that's kind of what I'm banking on.
We get content outside of Pochven a lot as well.
I genuinely believe this exploit violates the spirit of EVE. It is a thing that, I mean, if you want to take our site, come fucking get it. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to curse on your stream. I'm sorry, but come bring a fleet. Come clash with me. Bring me a fight. And if I lose it and I welt my fleet, at least we had a good thing over it, and you took the site honorably. But what this essentially represents is we're making people fat and rich, and we're increasing their stockpiles, and they're doing no work, and they're risking nothing, and they're not engaging with us. It takes the fun out of running the sites. We're better off going and doing other stuff.
Yeah.
There's no risk from their side.
Like, we've run
no
maybe
risk from their side.
We used to run like a bunch of these every day, and we would fight with Rote Capel and have things like that. And yeah, there's a lot of people that are upset, like, oh, you had, you know, free ISK kind of a thing. But we still had fleet engagements out there. If the gates were open and this exploit didn't exist, we'd still keep doing them. The exploit exists, so when you go to run it, we've had times where we get less than 1 million ISK per pilot, when it's normally a 200 million ISK payout. There's no point in running that anymore. There's no point in putting 12 billion on field to make 1 million per pilot.
So
no one wants to do it.
How many characters are they bringing in?
Tons.
Oh, like 7 to 10. I mean, it's gotten crazier. I mean,
you have to remember, it's a scalar
total.
too. So the more people that are on grid, the less everyone gets paid out overall, and then it also splits. So if you're after 15 pilots, the payment tanks, dude. So there's no point to do it anymore.
Got it.
The risk is not worth the reward.
So they're not stealing your crops. They're salting the earth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they've
got
even
it.
said, like, you know, one of their channels even states directly on it, why get a 250 million payout on one character when you can get 5 characters with 25 million payouts? They don't care about the ISK. They care about damaging the payouts for everyone in the site.
Sure.
It's not about stealing the money at this point. It's about causing damage.
Yeah. Well, either way, that's unfortunate. But so
Yeah.
in the meantime, Pochven is more open than ever, but you're getting most of your ISK outside of Pochven, and your content is running around and just brutalizing anybody who's inside at the moment. Is that?
No, I mean, I wouldn't even say that. A lot of our hunters like hanging out in Pochven because there's a lot of good fights, you know, small engagements and things like that. It's more of a PvP meat grinder in there. But to be honest with you, we don't spend time in Pochven for any other type of activity. Like, we go do other things. We go do, you know, our industrial guys go do mining outside of that. Our, you know, large fleet engagements happen outside of that. Pochven is just kind of where we live right now until something changes.
So that's a bad sign. You're very not happy about that.
That's
I'm
not
assuming.
that's not good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that's good. And the one thing that I've given this feedback really heavily to CCP. It's from our entire, you know, community at Stribog Clade, and it's we want money to be drained out of the dread sites and put into other PvE activities in the region. It makes the most amount of sense. There's no reason to have only 15-man PvE content in the region. Give us relic sites, give us data sites, give us gas sites, give us ice sites. Like, make other stuff for people to do in this region so that 1 to 5 players can do things here, and it would make the region much more healthy.
Right. I mean, first Kybernauts Clade, you know, we're spending time, you know, doing wormhole ops, you know, mining gas that holes that come in. Like, we're not really, you know, as far as the you know, there's nothing for us to do as far as PvE goes anymore in Pochven. It's all PvP based, which is great. I mean,
What
the
about
solo
mining
people
the
running
rocks?
around. We do mine. I mean,
Yeah, mining's good.
Because we live in Kino, we have really good mining, and we have a little more safety than the other systems. This is Kybernauts Clay. We live in Kino, one of the anchor systems, so we have a little better protection than the other people that live outside in the loop. But even then, it's, you know, people, you know, we're not all, you know, just miners all day. We want to go out and shoot people.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I'm more just trying to get an idea of what activities are and are not being attractive or ran or done in Pochven at the moment.
So perhaps by contrast to Kybernauts
Hmm.
and Stribog, we actually have a lot of industrialists, a lot of rock munchers, and a lot of people building ships. We're having a good old time out there.
Oh, we're doing that as well, but it's just
the mining
not.
is really good.
Yeah, the mining's
it's
great.
just extracting it. Extracting is the hard part because you can't compress. So we have the only Tatara in Pochven. We have the only Asbel in Pochven inside of our alliance. So we have the unique position to be able to do stuff with that mined ore and be able to, like, actually do things with it inside of Pochven. But most people, they can't compress. They can't extract it. The only way to get it out is through hauling, and hauling through wormholes, you know, poses its own problems there, especially with uncompressible ore. So that ends up being a really weird problem. What I'd honestly like is I would really like standings to affect refine rate or something like that in the stations. Make them more livable for people that are actually grinding these up. Maybe it'll give people another incentive to grind their standings up. Give them something to do in these stations.
I've actually said that since Pochven was created, especially like I like the idea of no structures, but then they need to fold the benefits of having structures into being positive with the Triglavians. So that way the Triglavians allow you extra privileges based on how much they like you.
Yeah, because refining at 50% kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But the other half of it, I guess the idea would be that the ore that you're mining is so good that isn't as big of a deal because you're mining stuff that is usually only gotten in low sec, right?
If you cut it in half, if you cut Triglavian ore in half, you're getting less money than plagioclase and high sec. There's no point. So refining it in NPC citadels or NPC structures is not the play. They need to upgrade that if they want to make it so that citadels are not the main key in here. Or if they want you to extract it back out, that's a little weird.
And it's really big to move. So like trig ore is just, it's hard to move. So like, you know, we just branched out into Otella, and, you know, we have a Rotaru and an Athenor now. But, you know, it's not as good as Tatara and his Asbel, of course. But
yeah,
it is
so
at least something.
If you're gonna refine trig ore in an NPC station, you might as well just be mining in high sec. Like, that's it, because you're gonna make more money per hour anyway.
Well, that's unfortunate. Okay.
Yep.
So, but do you see, now that the gates are unlocked, have you seen an increase in traffic of people using Pochven for logistics purposes, like nullsec? Have you seen any evac from?
Constantly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So what we actually see quite a lot of, because we have scouts all over Kryvelis pretty much any time of day, we see wormhole groups. What they do is they have their 15-man fleet, and they're farming stuff in their wormhole, and they filament when they get dropped on. The moment they filament, they land in Pochven. We've been able to catch a couple of these guys when they're trying to get out, because they'll screw up the wormholes on the way out, which is quite funny. So we caught a Lashak not too long ago doing that same thing. And we just see them pop in because they got dropped on, and then they leave through a wormhole, and they go back out to K-Space, and that's it. And it's really interesting to watch. But Pochven has become an escape route for other people that are trying to escape from getting engaged on in other areas of space. And I think that's really interesting, but it also shows another problem, which is that filaments can be used in sites. They can't be used near citadels, they can't be used near stations, but they can be used in sites. So if you're in a site and someone drops on you, you leave. And I actually used it the other day in LowSec in an EOM site when I was hacking the can. Guy landed right behind me and he was about to jump on me, and I filamented out. There's no counterplay to that. Just gone.
If they can manage to hit you or shoot you
then
before, then you can't filament out. But as long as you filament before...
But they're instantaneous.
Yeah. They're instantaneous. There's no wind-up, and you can use them while moving.
Yeah, you got to be on the ball, but it is definitely a get-out-of-jail-free card, which is interesting. That's very interesting.
Yep. And the moment you use it, you're in Pochven now, and they can't follow you because the filament collapses behind you instantly. Honestly, what I'd like to see is make it so people can follow you. If you're going to escape in a Pochven, let people chase you. Like, even for just
like
a few
trace
seconds.
that lasts
great.
10 seconds. Give it a 10-second timer. Make it so people can chase them down. Follow them into Pochven.
But they need to make it so that all of those filaments, instead of being like the rules that they follow now, it creates a filament or a trace like the like the frigate one, so that way up to that many people can activate it, but make it so that it isn't necessarily fleet bound, so that other people could chase you through it.
Exactly, because like the thing is what they do is they filament into Pochven, and then they immediately extract back out to K-Space because it's one jump away anytime that you're doing that. And it's usually high security space. I really, really want there to be some kind of counterplay to that. I want people to chase you into Pochven and the fight to continue. It should not be a get out of jail free card. It should not be instantaneous and let you be like, nope, no one can touch me. I hate that. It
takes you to a Thunderdome, basically.
Like, even when I used it, I was like, this is actually gross. They should change this. Like, this there's no reason I should be able to do this.
It does make rating things for you. So what is your guys' main activity right now then? Is it ESS rating? Is it what do you guys do?
We've spent most of the last week doing Capsuleer Day. It's so profitable that we've been doing that really heavily. On top of that, we've been doing, setting people up for industry activities. We got 10 moons in the area, setting all of that kind of stuff for our indie bros. And then our hunters, they're doing a bunch of classes on PvP, and our FCs are doing a bunch of classes on PvP. We've effectively turned inward to try and make our inside of the house stronger while this is going on, while CCP figures out what they're going to do next. Because trying to do these sites in the way that it is, with all the seagulls and everything that's going on, it's not fun for our players, which leads to burnout. And I really don't want to deal with that, frankly. That's not good for them. It's not good for us. I'd rather have players be happy doing something that makes less ISK than unhappy doing something that makes more ISK and is really, really annoying.
Actually, there's a really, really easy solution. And it's already in the World Arc. So the World Arc has a sphere around it of turbulent energy. So if you get too far away from the World Arc, you start taking massive amounts of damage. It also happens to kill frigates or small things that try to warp in. There's a chance if you're landing during the tick, it'll rip apart your ship. If they brought that to the Dread site, then those guys wouldn't be able to hide that far away, which I think is fun. So, this goes back to what we were saying before, which is that ultimately you're not saying that you don't want other people to come and interfere with your stuff, which is why I keep going back to that idea of the incursion payout isn't great.
Yeah.
I want there to be a drive for there to, or a reason for both sides to be there, but you want them to not be able to cheese it, which is fair.
We just want them to stop cheesing it. We want to be able to have a fight over it. The thing is if you try and do that bubble around it, it wouldn't work because of the size of the arena in there. They'd have to change a considerable amount of game mechanics to be able to make that kind of a thing work.
That's fair.
A really easy fix is just saying whatever fleet finishes the site with the highest DPS, and if you wipe out that fleet, they're not there anymore. That's an easy fix because it's using mechanics that CCP already has. It's using, a use case where they already have it in incursions. It's a simple fix for them. And anything that you can give them that's hey, this is an elegant solution to this, one that you've already done, very easy, how to do this type of thing, and this is why it would make the most sense. That's what I'm trying to push the most for. Is because, being able to say hey, this will take the least amount of development time and also work, that's what I'm after.
but does
Yeah.
not provide for play and counterplay. No. Let's see. Anything
It
else
does, though.
about the current?
No, that absolutely provides for play and counterplay. What do you mean?
Well, you wouldn't if you're not able to bring a fleet that basically it just allows for races like incursions do. You wouldn't be able to have an
No, it
individual
wouldn't, because
disrupt
you're in
things.
null security. You have null security space. If they wipe your fleet out, you're not on grid anymore. You don't get paid.
Right.
Well,
You lose.
fair,
Like-
but I'm just saying like the mechanic. Either way, whatever. We'll have to see how CCP decides to do that in the end.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see.
I am going to pull up here. Nope, this isn't it. I subscribe to the TIS news mailing list, which is very handy. And so he has the post here on Tranquility, so that way I don't have to go over to Sissy to talk about this. Can we talk a little bit about the next event that's going to be coming up? You mentioned that you guys are doing the current event. Are you guys going to be interested in the Stargate event?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Okay.
Anything that CCP is going to do that could undo what we did in Niarja, we're going to destroy that gate. If they give us the ability to destroy that gate, and if not, we're going to gank everyone trying to build it. That's just
There
how
you
that's
go.
going to go.
Although I kind of want to see this sustain the gate sustain. No, I'm not gonna lie. There's a part of me going, we should give him that one.
So, unfortunately for CCP, though, we already have Losec Staingate in our alliance. He's a real person, and we have him. So, exclusively for Stribog Clade, Losec Staingate.
Copyright. So there are. It's looking more and more like there's going to be 4 different Stargates that are all going to be able to be built potentially, but they're all at the same time, and players will have to go to these systems and run the mining sites there. I assume that players will be able to interrupt these sites in various different ways, including in the Losec ones, which all but one of the Stargates has at least one of the sides on Losec, and therefore prevent the gate from being created. So I feel like this is an experiment in what players will and won't fight over, which is really an extension of invasions, which is one of the reasons why I thought that you guys would be interested. So each one of them kind of have their own focus, right? You have the Stain to Tashmarkon gate, which is, for the memes. That is, once and for all, we will decide whether or not there shall be a low gate to Stain. Then there's the Solitude gate, which I find the most interesting because while the Solitude guys were upset at that right away, the fact that it's so deep in Losec has made most of them kind of not care as much. So it doesn't really matter that much practically to players, but this is the one that's been played up the most in the lore, that the president of the Federation really wants this gate to happen. And so the question is, will that lead players to then go ahead and do that? And then you have the Metropolis to Genesis link, which really connects Heck into the heart of makes it much more connected and would much better establish it as a trade hub. It's also noted as the only one where both sides are in HiSec. So a lot of people are assuming that's going to be the one that's the easiest to build. And then finally, Citadel Isutaka to Abazan, which is the one that everyone's excited about, you guys are talking about, which is this one makes a jump from Jita to Amar take 11 jumps. Sorry, trip from Jita to Amar take 11 jumps. It used to take, 10 or 11, with Niarja being the 0.5 choke point. Then Niarja went to Nullsec. Then Niarja went to Pochven, and that made it 46 jumps from Amar to Jita. It created the formation of the Silk Road, and many Triglavians have held that up as being like the crown jewel of invasions. Am I right? Good so far?
Yep.
So then I assume that this gate is a significant threat to your beautiful, beautiful sculpted ISEC. Is that pretty much correct? And you're going to prevent it.
I'm interested to see.
I
really want to see what they're going to do for counterplay for the HiSec one. How are we going to stop people from building this thing? Because with the invasion, the system went low-sec eventually, and then it went null-sec eventually. But, if it's HiSec, is it just going to be us catalysting people? I don't know how that's going to work.
So I don't necessarily like. I have no vanity caught up in how many jumps people make between markets. Like we have Niarja, they're never getting it back. They can't undo what we did, even if they make a new gate. What I feel is that the increased distance between Amar and Jita and the risk getting between them has led to more items being seeded in different markets. It's led to more economic activity. Instead of just everybody focusing on Jita, you kind of have to, deal with what you got in the neighborhood. So it's a good thing, I think, to not let everybody consolidate their behaviors in one place.
Right, I agree with that too. And
I don't. I want. We split the universe in half. We split New Eden in half, and I want to keep it that way. You don't get to repair that by building a new gate.
Well,
I
that's
like
what we're
having
saying.
split.
That's
markets.
exactly what we're saying.
Oh,
That's what we're saying.
I thought you were saying it didn't matter. And I was like, wait a minute.
No,
No.
I'm saying it matters for different reasons. It's not because we triangles, we have victory, this is our... It's not about that. It's literally about the fact that it splits up player activity in a way that I think is healthy for the game.
I agree.
Well,
Okay, yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I misunderstood you. I was like, wait a minute.
Well, what I'm hearing is that you're rejecting the idea that if this gate was built, that would somehow undo what you have done. What you have done is complete and concrete, and this would be another different thing. That this low-sec system isn't Niarja, it isn't a 0.5, and therefore they can grab their safety blanket and tell themselves that they've put it back and made it better, but they didn't.
I'm going to be honest with you, though. I'm going to take that safety blanket away. Like, no, we split your universe in half, and it's staying that way.
We're going to keep it that way.
Yeah.
So
I would prefer it stay this way.
I'm going to go ahead and say now it's probably going to be a lot of joint Kybernauts, as a whole going against that one, right? You're going to deal with all of Pochven.
The thing I'm less concerned about, like, us being able to fight. I'm more concerned about if it is in a protected space and it is the mining sites as it is expected, or as it was before. Like, what's going to stop somebody from just grabbing a bumping omen or something like that and just going site by site by site and just bumping the orca 50 kilometers away and just being like, fuck you, and leaving. So it'll be, I think that disruption would get a lot more interesting because they have to mine the ore and put it in the orca, and there are rats that come in and fight, so you can assist them and stuff like that. So, we disrupted each other's efforts even before it went low-sec during invasions. So I'm interested to see what kind of play and counterplay comes out of that, given how terrible the rules of high-sec are when it comes to making those things make sense at all.
Well, hopefully CCP will put in some mechanics that will make it a little less cheesy.
I do know that
I want to have contention. I want to have fights there. If it's all just like mine, very happy high sec. Like the low sec ones, at least seem like they'll have some sort of engagement. But the high sec one, I really hope there's some way to fight people. Like,
it is funny that, like, so one of the things that was pointed out is that right now there's a pretty significant choke point. Name I'm eluding right now. Is eluding me at the moment.
Vicamia?
That's probably it. That this gate, the Heck gate, would undermine. And so while at the same time it is the quote-unquote safest gate to build, it is the one that the gankers will want to stop the most.
The other thing is they have to be built on both sides. So if the locals in the other area don't want it to be built, like, it's going to be built on the high-sec side, but not on the other side, and that's really important.
Well, that one is high-sec on both sides. It's the only one that's high-sec on both sides.
That one will probably end up getting built if they don't give us counterplay. But I mean the other ones, like if you're trying to build a gate to Stain, you have to build it on the Stain side too, and that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you heard it here first, Gankers of New Eden. If you want to continue your domination and your murder of these people, you need to help the Triglavians. Now is the time, and let's not let these people make a short route.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't let them do it. You're going to lose content.
Yeah. Lose content. Market values go down.
Every ganker in the game is a Triglavian now.
Oh, Del Toll. Sorry,
it's
Del Toll is the choke point that this will give a workaround to.
That's really interesting to see. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm waiting to see how they implement it. I want to make sure. I really hope that there's counterplay, like or not counterplay, but like contention, where we get to fight.
Yeah, dude. when we took down Nyarja the first time, that was a frickin' fight for the ages, man. There was goons there. There was everybody who hated goons there. There was all the triangles and all the EDIs. It was the whole game fighting over 1 star. That was awesome. If you're going to try to undo that, at least give us another fight. At least.
Yep.
It is also worth noting that there is some very interesting information that's coming out of Sissy. This is all very like preliminary stuff, but one of the things I saw was, even though the text says that there's no more restrictions, I think that that was only standings restrictions. I think that there are significant ship restrictions inside of these sites, and I think that they're very constrained and also racially specific. It looked like you had to bring like Tech 1 Amar ships to the Amar sites, Tech 1 Galente ships to the Galente sites, etc., etc.
Weird.
I could be wrong. I might have misunderstood it. I may not, whatever. But there is a lot of stuff on Sissy, and not only is it in the files, but it has seemed that we've seen at least a couple of people have seen the site spawn on the Amar gates, which are being defended by Sancha diamond rats that were added into Sissy alongside with this stuff.
So if anyone out there is in CCP, look at chat real quick, because one of the biggest things about Eve is I was there. And every person in this chat is talking about I was there for Nyarja. I was there for these systems. The invasion means so much to these people. So thank you for continuing the storyline in Pochven today. It means a whole lot. Even if it's just a few lines from one person acting an NPC out, this really, really means a lot to these people. So you guys are kicking butt. Keep it up, please.
I just realized I might have pinned myself between like two different. I need to navigate out of this place. Yeah. So as I was wandering around doing my event sites the other day, you guys can probably relate with this. I have to go into Pamene and other places that are Edencom, and for a little while, like especially since they chilled out all the rats, right? So 2 or 3 times I made it through Edencom gate camps, and it was perfectly fine. They shot at me a couple times, but nobody scrammed me, and so I got to thinking. And in fact, I posted it in some Discord, and somebody's like, "Yeah, I think they just made it so they don't do that anymore." Yeah, no, that's not true. My absolution is very dead. Just so you know, Edencom definitely still gate camping, and they're back with a vengeance again now. So
yeah, we saw inside of Pochven actually there's a fleet that we saw moving around in Vale that was like 100-man Edencom fleet of NPCs because they just kept piling up and piling up and piling up today. So yeah, don't go there. It's really horrifying right now.
So, Maldavius, you're saying I should autopilot my freighter through Edencom space?
Definitely autopilot your freighter in Pochven. That's a great idea. Tell me which system you're going through. I'll be sure to be there.
Now
you wouldn't shoot me. I'm blue now.
No,
he's at blue. He's at neutral characters.
Oh yeah, well, fuck them.
So everything for you guys is basically just a wait and see. You've hoarded your wealth from running sites before, and now you are preparing for what's next. Is that pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is we do need another ISK faucet. We do need more activities to do. I've positioned us pretty well for that kind of stuff. We've got a lot of different activities for our pilots where they're still making, generating value. And it's tough for people that were relying completely on the dread sites. It is. There were some players that were just doing that kind of stuff. Because you have to remember, most of the invasion phase 3 was repeatable PvE content, right?
Right.
Most of these sites were repeatable PvE content. People got used to that. They got used to making small amounts of ISKs over time. And then we got Pochven and its hardcore PvP wormhole space. Like, very, very different kind of crowd, right? So many people did not adapt correctly. The ones who did adapt got to start running these PvE sites, and then they got used to the repeatable PvE content again, and then they flipped the script again, and now we have, more PvP and wormhole space. If that exploit didn't exist with, stealing ISK from the sites with no interaction, that we'd still be running them. We'd still be running them super hard, and we'd be out there fighting more fleets and doing that type of,
right.
PvP engagement. But yeah, right now it's just that. We're just sitting around waiting and doing other content. Like, Pochven doesn't serve a whole lot of purpose to many of the people that have invested in it heavily currently. And it's more of just like we live here, it's quite cool, and we use it to go other places and then filament home, which is the really big benefit.
So by contrast, I mean, my organization is a little over 100 pilots in general. Again, we don't have the ability to project the way Stribog does. And so we never became as reliant upon the ISK from those sites. We ran them when we could, and they were very lucrative. But so the inability to run them now hasn't hit us that hard. Like, really, what sucks for us right now, it doesn't suck. It's like the main goal for us is to try to give people a reason to come play in this space who weren't sunk into Invasion. If you weren't in the Invasion, there's very little reason for you to come and invest and do the standings grind. So we're trying to make that appealing for new players is our new task.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the fact that, the industry changes have changed the cost of fuel and things like that. So now it's about 5 billion ISK per month of fuel for all the citadels that we have. You've dropped out one of the major ISK faucets inside of our space. So, like, we had to find other ways to make that value in order to keep living here. And we have. Like, we're doing okay. It's just, it's a matter of doing that. It's a matter of making sure that that works. And that's tough to do at the drop of a hat for a larger organization.
I was about to ask a dumb question. Can I ask it anyways, just so we can get out of the way?
Sure.
I was going to say, can you moon mine in there? And it's like, yeah, that'd be great. If you had an Athenor.
Actually, we do.
Yeah.
We have 2
Athenors.
moons inside of there. We have an
mine.
R64. We have an R4, and we have 10 moons on the outside.
It's an R64.
So we have an R64.
There's a problem with this, though. We do mine a moon currently in Pochven, but you can't set up new moon mines. Like,
yeah, that's what I meant.
So we really got to find a way to anchor new ones.
Now, understand something, though? R4s actually give a massive amount of value now. Absolutely enormous. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. With reactions, and guess what? We have the Tatara in Pochven, so we can do reactions right there at home in nullsec. So we do have a really nice industrial route for our industrial players there, and it is very helpful. So that's the thing, is like, we've had to lean back from the PV activities and lean into the industrial activities in order to stay living in Pochven. To me, that doesn't feel right. The region doesn't feel as active as it should. It feels like a placeholder for what it should be right now.
Right. And so there was a question that we have some people that have come in. So just in case you're new or you've just come in recently, the person who was just speaking was Maldavius.
Hi.
Zeromus, can you say hi?
Hello, everybody.
And then Opus is the third voice.
Hello.
I should have set it up more for multiple people being able to talk, but notes for next time, I guess.
That's all good.
Hope that clears it up. Yeah.
Yeah. As the largest organization in the region, this change is and this exploit that's going on, it's tough. We've had to tighten our belt and be able to make sure that everything works still. From a business side of things, we're doing okay now, but that's because I planned for what if one day the dread sites were gone. Right. And I've been doing that for the last several months because it was too profitable. It was obviously too profitable. So you have to plan for what happens if CCP comes in and drops it to 20% of the value. Can you still run an organization in this space doing that? And since we planned for it, we're doing okay. We're not doing as well as we were, but that doesn't matter.
Right. That makes sense.
Well, that's like, and then we're kind of, the Kybernauts plays kind of in zeros boat too with ITC. We've, Kybernauts, we weren't running observation sites, flashpoints throughout Pochven. We were just running the ones in Kino. So we've been, kind of already, diversifying how we made our ISK and our content. But this is a great opportunity for us to really internalize and work on ourselves, right? With this little lull and how the waiting for the next bit of content for Pochven. So we're going on PvP fleets as well, doing our things to show everyone's skills up on that guard, because I think it's going to be needed more and more as people come into Pochven and as the next phase of Pochven that CCP has planned for us. So it's kind of a nice, as much as it is kind of sucks because you had to change some stuff, it also is a good time to kind of do some self-maintenance.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we're treating it as well. It's just working on the alliance, making sure that our FCs are really good. We've been doing a lot of like test server days where everyone goes out and like learns different fleets and like tries new comps and things like that. We've also went and updated all of our doctrines, started working on getting all of our industrials and things to start shipping new things in so that we have a more thriving market internally. It's a lot of that like build up internal so that we can start doing more things on the outside. And I think this is a great time to do that. Since the region is in like a weird flux, it doesn't make sense to throw all of your assets on the table.
For sure.
Have we checked the anchorages? Yes. We're waiting for them. Trust me.
I live in an anchorage site. We're waiting.
We check it every day. We have citadels all along Kryvelis. We live there, are part of the region.
Bread Fleet holds down Kreis Farag, and we haven't seen anything interesting yet in Nyarja.
Yep. We're still waiting. Nothing in Kino.
Can I just say it's pretty rad that we have like the leaders of the 3 like English-speaking Triglavian groups out of cat. That's just awesome. It's fun to be here with you guys.
I think Ashtarothi's trying to talk, but he's muted.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
I was muted for a second. It's fine. No,
Okay.
I really do appreciate all 3 of you kind of on a drop of a hat, more or less, are coming and helping out with this. But
The only other group I wish was here is Como. They're awesome, but they're Russian speaking. But they're also like one of the biggest groups out here, and I love them.
Yeah, I really like the Como Russians. They're very, very cool. Really, really awesome guys. The Triglavian Unity. They're really, really cool. We fly with them quite a lot.
so what I was asking though is just to make sure you once again we left this where we left this at the very beginning. You have the militants. You've turned over the doodad. We haven't heard anything else since that. That's basically the end of the story right now. Is that pretty much correct? And
yeah, we've handed them the data fragment. They said that our service is noted. They know that like who we are as Stribog Clade, which is quite cool. And we're just waiting. We're waiting to see what happens.
so we've seen a lot of new diamond rats roaming around as part of the events, especially leading up to the EOM event that we're doing right now, the Capsuleer Day event, because the fleets are on the move. Have you seen any new behavior from the local flora and fauna?
No, we're really hoping that something changes with that because, as I've talked about before, Triglavian units just kind of die in here. Like, they don't really feel like they have a substantial force behind them. Zoria units don't spawn very often, so because of that, drifters, Edencom, and drones almost always win every engagement, so you just end up getting a lot of hostile NPCs in space that Triglavians supposedly control. So it's about the same. Nothing has changed.
Well, that's why they need you.
That's us. We're the ones controlling the space, which means the Triglavian NPC force is not, which is very strange. That's an odd thing for us.
I have noticed one shift in the NPC behavior of the Triglavians, and my comrades will tell me if I'm off here. Maybe it's just something I'm recently noticing. But it seems to me that in engagements with drifters, the Triglavian NPCs will all, after killing one, they all warp away out to crazy distances like they do on World Arc sites, and then they re-land on the target. So they like puff out and then recontract on a target, which is behavior that I only saw them exhibiting a little bit before, and now they do it quite frequently.
They've always done it. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing they've always done. That's actually how I lost my first Noctis in the game. I lost it in Pochven because they did that. And they just, they blap one and then they fly away. And they did that at the beginning of Pochven, so I haven't seen anything new with that. They are still attacking high standings players, by the way. If you do have high standings with Triglavians and suddenly they're shooting you and they kill you, send in a ticket to CCP. We've gotten over 100 of our ships returned to us by CCP because of this bug, so we know it's a bug. If you are killed by a Triglavian unit and you have high standings, like I have over 8.0, and I've been attacked by them from over 10,000 kilometers away, and their laser is just coming from 10k away, and it just sits there and hits you and does nothing. But like they will kill you if they're on grid with you. Put in a ticket. So we have seen that, and that's very common. It's been there since the invasion.
And it's not you trying to get your ship back. It's also you helping CCP, because every single one of those bug reports ends up being a data point, and you never know which data point is going to be the key that shows you, what exactly is going on. If the bug is easy, it would already be fixed.
Yep, it's definitely an AI-related issue, and it's probably something deep. We've seen all kinds of stuff with that. My anticipation that it's actually going to be an issue on a larger scale, probably because of the fact that Triglavians are normally hostile to you unless they have standings, because we've seen the same thing with Serpentis units that are on very large grids where they are able to target you from 10,000 kilometers away, preventing you from cloaking. So my guess is it's because those units normally are hostile, and your standings change them to not hostile. At the same time, we've also seen Triglavians killing each other, so I don't really know.
It's true. And but the other piece of that is that we've also seen that in the lore. Like, actually, even in one of the latest posts, there is stuff about, Svarog.
Oh yeah, but I mean in the same fleet.
Your name is messing with me, by the way. This always does. Stribog, because Stribog and Svarog. So that was that freeze because I almost said Stribog and I was like, that's not it. But no, Svarog and Velez, I think it was, that were fighting with each other. Have you guys been paying attention at all to trying to figure out what the Triglavians are doing? Because it really seems like each clade is trying to develop their own shtick.
They have their own clear personalities between the three different clades. And like, if that was the NPCs fighting each other over that'd be really cool. But they're the same fleet and they just land on grid and then just blap each other.
Yeah. I'm not sorry. I didn't mean to suggest that it like no. It's all intentional. But
we definitely meme about it being approving. Like, let me be clear. Like, we're like, oh look, they're proving each other again. But it's just a bug, you know.
So if you ever want to not mix up Svarog and Stribog, just call them string beans. That's what I do. They're the string bean clade to me. Or you could be Strongbong.
So
well, we have Strongbong and Kybernauts clade.
So
yeah, that's how it works. Everyone calls us something different. My favorite is when people call us Striborg. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
So on the
everyone mispronounces us. It's great.
With respect to your question about like what are we doing to try to figure out what the clades are doing, I find myself in a pretty awkward position. My whole corp is very anti-authoritarian. We sided with the Trigs because they reject relationships of domination and things like this. But we found that living as we do in Kreisfarog, that some of the storyline seems to indicate they're a little bit more, harsher to the captured populations, and they don't necessarily seem like the good guys. So it does put us in an awkward spot lore-wise. We don't envision ourselves as oppressors.
I will say that there's a lot of suggestions in the lore, or at least there's enough hints in the lore that you could hook into it if you wanted to, that says that the accusations that it is bad is propaganda. They've said that there are suspicions or accusations that they're actually helping the people, that this is, good. As we mentioned earlier, it seems like they're doing biomutation for the purposes of getting them ready or adapted to what is to come, and refers to them as aspirants, as if they are choosing to be part of it. And we know, at least in Galente space, this is true. When Vale fell, basically the Vale government was just like, cool, new government, whatever. Like they
like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm never gonna trust Edencom or Concord ever. Like, I absolutely am completely bought into the idea of they're probably doing something bad, and the Triglavians know what's up. Because in every single situation that we've dealt with any of those forces, there's been underhanded tactics used every single time. And through all of it, the Triglavians haven't lied to us about any of that information.
It's also
been really, really apparent.
It's also interesting that the implant that the Concord came out with that helps Triglavian ships is called mimesis.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an acronym I heard once, ACAB, all Concord are bastards.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you can link the Edencom video. I'm not going to play it right now, but there is a pretty cool. I'm not prepared to do it at the moment. Kyle the 10D, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole at Steve Online. So I have up the news article from the 30th of April, so last month, right? And so in the other news section, it says, Edencom refuses to comment on reports of several outbreaks of fighting between Amar and Memitar troops seconded to fortress duties. This is suggesting like there's tension, cracks are forming, right? But then it says, where is it? Reports that massive Svarog clade assault on abandoned mining complex on Skarkon 2, quote, obliterated side of a mountain with AM munitions. Velez, and then the next one, Velez clade frigate sighted, quote, bombing rear of Svarog assault column. Svarog, quote, responding with graviton pulse weapons in atmosphere. And at antimatter detonations with graviton pulse weapons, quote, causing superstorms threatening cities not yet totally abandoned by civilians. And then finally, Perun and Velez clade, quote, bioadapted and drone armies clashing in Vale 2 in bizarre battle of gigantic ocean biomatter raft. So it seems like I think Velez is going more drone, Perun is going more like soldier slaves, and Svarog is going more blowing things up, but I haven't quite fully figured it out yet. I was just wondering if anybody else is paying attention, as there's certain the flavor is starting to come out.
Honestly, I'm super fine with that. I think that'll be really cool. If we can, oh my god, if we could get some Triglavian drones, I'm going to be very happy being in Dallas. Let me tell you.
Ash, did you see the tweet about the changes to the changes?
I did not. Let me go look.
They tweeted stealth bombers are no longer getting the nullifier.
That's probably best.
Yeah.
That was definitely like I even called it that was the
What a
outlier.
crazy
That was the
day for
questionable
it
one.
too. Bomb
Yeah.
go boom.
I'm going to be honest with you. Triglavian sentry drones in chat there, I agree. I super agree. Let us drop a wear post. Let me have a Steve. I want to drop a Steve and just let it shoot someone. Even if it takes more bandwidth, I don't care. Let me drop a Steve. I want to have an Ishtar and drop a Steve and just delete people with it.
There you go.
I just wanted to come in here, say bomb go boom, and also Ash tell you about that tweet if you hadn't seen it. So
Yeah, I did not. I appreciate it. So breaking news: no, stealth bombers have been removed from the change that they're coming up with. So just to wrap up, we can talk about that for just a second. They have the interdiction nullification changes. Actually, we could talk about that for a second.
You missed the cool fight though.
Say again?
You said to wrap it up. There's a huge fight that you missed today.
Yeah,
in
It's fair.
Pochven.
You guys hadn't brought it up, so I didn't want to bring it up until somebody else did. But we can talk about that. But first, I want to bring up or explain what was just talked about with the stealth bombers. So interdiction nullification, which is an ability for certain ships to ignore warp disruption bubbles, is going to be changed. We talked about this, I believe, 2 days ago, maybe yesterday. I don't remember. And what year is it? There's a new list of ships that are able to use this new module that is going to provide the interdiction nullification ability rather than having it be baked into ships as they are right now. So that change is going to happen at some point. And one of the things that are part of this change is that all Tech 1 frigates, including pirate and faction frigates, as well as stealth bombers and covert ops, were going to get this interdiction nullification capability. So once every 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, they would, if they use this module that gimps their fit and gives them terrible scan resolution or locking and all that stuff, but would make it so they could just go straight out of a bubble. This was considered to be pretty insane by wormholers, basically everybody. The idea of stealth bombers being able to basically bypass bubbles that are being used defensively to keep them out of position and then do a bomb was seen as being extremely powerful. So now they have announced this is very early in testing, and this is an indication of that. They have already said that they're going to take that part out. I wonder if that means that they're also going to have to get rid of it for covert ops, but I doubt it because I think it's probably per ship, not per like ship class, because it was one interceptor and not the other. I wonder. We'll have to see how this works.
They did delineate when they said the module initially. I don't know if that matters.
Well, that's just because it is two ship types, but they use the same skill. I don't know. But interesting, very interesting. All right. Going boom. You guys wanted to talk about going boom.
Yeah, bomb go boom.
Today was the hull timer for an Electus Matari Astra House inside of Skarkon. Sorry, no, inside of Otella, actually. So this was in Otella. We downed it. It's dead. It's a hell of a fight. See if we can find the battle report for you.
It's in Skarkon, you said?
Sorry, I think it was in Otella.
Otella.
Yeah, it was Otella.
Ash, did you happen to watch that video I sent you?
Not right now, but I'm live, man.
So we lost a lot during this, but one of the... Oh, wow. BR Eve Tools is 502 bad gatewaying. Very cool. So I can't even show you this. Was it Skarkon? Okay, it was Skarkon. I'm dumb.
Yeah, Otella was
Skarkon.
Otella was where the other place was. Was where the
yeah.
Damn.
Otella was the other thing. It was.
I was gonna make a pun and ask you to Otella me more.
Dude, I've been up for like 20 hours and I have seen through that entire thing. So I don't even know where I am right now. But no, it was Skarkon. So this was really cool. We ended up getting an engagement with them that was huge. So they brought in a ton of Typhoons. We brought in Drekavax, and Dockworkers brought in a bunch of Zealots. Wild fight, actually insane. We ended up killing the Citadel, so we've decimated Electus Matari and their foothold inside of Pochven, which means one less Edencom aligned force being able to stage out of Pochven, and there's still one left to go. So if you guys are, Triglavian aligned, they live in Angemone, and we want to get rid of them. It's the last one that they have. It's a very, very fun fight. Ton of stuff was lost. I think there was about 20 billion in losses total, and like 14 billion of that was us. But the way that I look at it and the way that we feel about it is they can't replace that Citadel. We
Yeah.
can replace those ships, and that feels damn nice.
And that, again, goes back to one of the things that makes Pochven so interesting. A lot of people have complained about the fact that, well, they should have just deleted all the structures, or they should just let people anchor more structures. No, each one of these structures gets to be their own story. And no, nobody got to plan for it, but now that they're here, people are working with it. And that is creating the narrative that is unwinding. And so as part of that, this structure became a huge target, and it made it worth so much more than a normal Asterhus. This is as big as a Sov War Keepstar in a lot of ways.
Yeah. We threw 14 billion in losses on the field to kill that Asterhouse because they can never replace it. And that is something that everyone there really had a great time. Both sides really enjoyed the encounter. We talked to the FCs after the fact, and they were super down. Everything seemed great, and we had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm really happy we did. Awesome fight. Really awesome. And I have to say, Electus Matari, you guys commanded your fleet very exceptionally. Really surprised us in a lot of ways. And we still end up beating you, so hope to fight you again, honestly. It was very fun.
A worthy opponent, I'm hearing.
Why not ransom it? You don't ransom with Edencom. We want them out of Pochven.
Yeah, that's the thing is that, and goes back to the gates and other pieces like this, and invasions in the very beginning. Yes, there is an ISK payout component to this, but this is the reason why Edencom was so mad when they were left without anything after invasions, and it didn't matter to them that they had easy to run dread sites and good ISK to make. They didn't want ISK; they wanted purpose, right? Like these guys, like if they can make tons of ISK, that's fine, but they make ISK to have what they need in order to get their objective. Their objective is securing Pochven, right? Like this is all about an experiment to see what players are willing to fight for. When people say that it doesn't matter in null and to get rid of asset safety or whatever it is because the fighting doesn't matter because when I kill it, it doesn't already replaced. This is where things matter. This is where things matter. And what happens here will always be the thing that happened here.
And to give you a good timeline of this too, I literally handed that encrypted data shard to the NPC, and then we took this fight. Like we went over to Angemone and we poked their citadel until they formed up there. Then we went down to Skarkon and we started bashing the citadel while our guys were stop bubbling them along the way to stop them from being able to get to that citadel to defend it. And it was really, really funny because we were just stopping them at every single system, and we're all on Drekavax, so we can warp faster than their entire Typhoon fleet. Awesome fight. Really, really good all around.
So, either about that fight or whatever, or otherwise with these interdiction changes that are coming, do you think that that's going to impact you guys? Now that there won't be stealth bombers, that will help with your fights, but do you see this interdiction nullification being made so broad to be a giant nerf to Pochven? Sorry, I know I kind of jumped back to the original the other topic because I'd realized that, but
I mean bubbles are still going to be a thing. I mean, it's going to give us an advantage in our gates, I guess. Less things can go through.
So I'll give you the biased answer first, which is no. How dare you? You have nerfed my T3 cruiser, and I just got it, and I love it, and I've got a bunch of kills on it, and I like being interdiction nullified. Grr. But objectively, if I step outside my own self, it's probably a good idea. You know, having a passive module that has that much power might be a little OP. I don't know.
How much do you guys rely on bubbles for security?
Honestly, we use bubbles when we're having like a pretty intense day. But I don't know. They're not really super effective out here because most people that move around do it in interdiction nullified stuff. And with the changes to interdiction nullifier stuff, then let's just make it even less of a big deal. The one thing is if you're trying to fight the new interdiction nullification modules, you're going to have to do double gates. So like bubble on the outside, bubble on the inside, bubble the next gate, and then you'll catch them because they'll have the cooldown on the timer. That's really the only way you're going to be able to beat it. I'm also worried about like how that module is going to work because like if you warp into a bubble and you don't know that it's bubbled, you can't nullify in the middle of like your warp. You have to do it before.
You have to have done. You have to do it before you activate warp, because the calculation of where you're going to end up is done at warp. Like if you warp and then they open up the bubble, you won't be caught in the bubble. You'll go straight through.
Yeah.
The calculation is done at the time of of you entering into warp, I believe.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's the part that's really weird. It means you have to pop it
Mhm.
and then start your warp.
Yep, which is
And then
why
if you go on the other side, if you go on the other side of the gate and that is also bubbled, you'll have to bubble both sides of gates to do gate camps now. There's not going to be any other way.
Right, but that's how drag bubbles have always worked, right? If you don't get it up in time, they won't be dragged. So it's the same math.
right. But this is also the
Is
reason
it a
why
12-second?
they're going to add the thing to it that makes it so that you can activate it while under gate cloak. Right now, you can't activate any module while under gate cloak, but this module will be able to be activated while under gate cloak.
I think it all depends, right? I mean, people's going to come through the gates in Pochven, and we're going to shoot them. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's not going to. I don't think it's going to change too much.
So here's another thing to think about, though. This, especially the addition of nullification being added to shuttles, gives alphas the ability to use nullified ships. Do you think that that will be an advantage for you guys having people live there? Do you have the idea of having alpha, potentially even alpha clone, or at least new players that maybe not have access to interceptors or T3 cruisers or such things?
So I actually thought that was going to be a bad idea at first, but then I talked to some people about it and I wanted to understand some other perspectives. Eve is a game about destroying people in ship engagements. You don't really want to kill the guy that's in transit, the one that's on his way to the big battle. That doesn't really end in a really interesting engagement. So giving it to shuttles means that more people will arrive for these very large-scale engagements, and you're going to have cooler battles because of it, rather than just stopping people from getting over there in pods. Put them in a shuttle, you can make these fights bigger. So I think, honestly, that's going to be a cool change. At first, I wasn't really sold on it, but after talking to people, I am. I want larger engagements. I want more people to be able to get out there to the engagement. And by putting nullification on those, you allow for that.
It's a shuttle. I think it's just implied, right? It should be shuttling. It should be immune to this stuff. There's no
people
harm
were
in that.
People were talking about shuttles aren't insta-line, but dude, have you seen the price of leopards right now? Yeah, they're 300 million now instead of 120. And I sold all mine because hot damn.
Oh yeah.
That's a shuttle if people don't remember.
We had a guy that grabbed, I think, basically people started checking all of the secondary markets because it spiked immediately in Dodixie or in Jita. Somebody did it, but somebody hadn't cleared out Dodixie yet or something like that. So he went and bought 6 or 7 leopards at 130 to 158 million each, and then immediately turned around and sold them for 360 plus.
Yep.
In just the amount of time it takes to haul them to Jita.
Yep, that is exactly it. I mean, that's the thing is I went and sold a ton of them because I was like, oh, well then. Because people forget, that's a shuttle. It's technically a shuttle. It's going to get nullification.
Yep.
We assume. I mean, every indication is such. That is one of the things that I find really funny is that in the end, because it is all new and it is all very early preliminary stuff, CCP could easily come and say, oh, we meant only the standard shuttles. And then everybody's going to be like, ah! Because they bought leopards at 400.
And I'll have already made all my money.
Exactly. That's why it was smart to sell, man.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. I was like, CCP could change any of this at any time. I'm going to sell.
Yeah, well, they never said leopards. They just said they just said shuttles, and they were pretty vague in a lot of different places in that post, including I noticed that the forum post just has the wrong description of warp core stabs. The warp core stabs that are described on the forums are way closer to the current warp core stabs, with each one being only worth 1 point and you being able to have multiple. But after haggering CCP on Twitter for a while, I finally got, I think, CCP Swift to confirm that right now we should be considering what is on Sissy, which is a single module that you can only have one of them fit at a time, but it is worth multiple points, right now 3 when activated. So that is now your warp core stab. And what that means is that now with one module you can get 4 points of warp core stability, which is good. But it also means
you said 3 and then you said 4. How many?
Yeah, because you start with 1.
Give?
You always have 1 point of warp core stability. You take away that warp core stability, you can't warp. This is +3, so you now have 4 points of warp core stability, right?
No, I mean right now you have 0 because if someone puts a disruptor on you, you can't warp.
No, you have 1
So-
point of but a disruptor's worth 1 point. So 1 minus 1 is 0. You can't warp.
Oh, okay, so that's how it works. I always assumed
Yeah.
it was just 0 across the board.
I always start with you start at 1, and if you ever get to 0, then you can't warp. Your ship by
Okay, that makes
in its
sense.
natural state has 1 point of warp core stability. A stab will take that away from you. So any rate, so you have 1 point of warp core stability plus the 3, that makes 4. This means that having the 1 is more powerful. So like for instance, you can now have a Astero with a interdiction nullification and a warp core stab and a hyperspatial rig along with its covert ops cloak. You can get all that on one Astero now, which is kind of funny. But on the other half of it, it means that you can't get really more than 4 under normal conditions. And so that means that two scrams, a faction scram and a disruptor, or a Mollis Navy issue can basically lock down anybody without much of a consideration. And the Mollis Navy issue actually gets a bonus to scram range, so they should be able to scram out to like easily 15 to 20 without anything too fancy. So that's actually a whole new world of gate camps and points, etc. Now you have battleships. They can have frigate escape bays that are with frigates that are interdiction nullified, so that way their battleships can be blown up and then they can still get out of the bubble. But at the same time, you have Mollises that can point somebody, and you know for a fact that they literally can't get away.
I have Mollis's and Otella right now. I love that ship.
People are saying buff to Galente LP, which, you know, if you want to fight for the Federation, you should join Aderon Robotics. But any thoughts about that change in regards to your guys' universe?
I mean, the thing is for Pochven, it's not really going to change our tactics too much. I think we'll just do, gate camps on both sides of both sides of a gate to like stop nullification from getting through. But outside of that, operationally, it doesn't change much for us, frankly.
Yeah.
It'll screw a little bit with the way we like to set up our T3 cruisers, but we shall adapt.
It is also worth noting that it is actually increased the flexibility of T3 cruisers, because the T3 cruiser subsystem does make the module very, very pretty darn, like once every minute and 15 seconds when you can hold cloak, you can hold your it'll keep spinning during cloak, means that you can pretty much use it whenever. But also, even non-subsystemed T3 cruisers can now use interdiction nullification. So
there's a problem with that though. Is it takes a slot. T3Cs already have to use those slots really, really effectively. Taking one of them away is a really big deal. When you're, transferring that off of the nullification subsystem and making it into a module with a slot, that's going to upset a lot of builds in a way that I don't know is very, productive for the T3Cs.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it also takes up CPU that is not compensated for, which is a big problem for the interceptors too. But I guess my point is that there will now be configurations that could potentially use it, but that's a bit undermined because, like, my argument would have been that you could just reconfigure, right? Like, I could just drop a mobile depot and swap it out. But your freaking T3 cruiser, you could also swap out your subsystem at that point. So it's like, who cares? Like,
yep. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is I don't know if it works very well for T3Cs. It's just strange to me. Like, the change for them is, I don't know. It feels like they're getting forgotten in that change. Seems a little odd.
I think also the biggest piece of this for both T3Cs and interceptors that really need to be pointed out is that it's not just a nerf to their playstyle, because their bonuses do undermine or do help out with that a lot, but it also just, they're losing what makes them special, because so many other things are now going to have this capability. It's almost like the exact opposite of Sinos, right? When the Sinos change happened, those particular ships that were able to use it were suddenly valuable because of this very specific need, and interceptors were seen in that way, and T3 cruisers with this interdiction nullification was seen as special. So regardless of how well they can use the new low slot, they are no longer special because of it. And I think that that's actually the biggest piece that people are having more difficulty articulating.
Yeah, no, I super agree. I think that's one of the things that's really strange about it, is it does take away from the special factor for them. It does take that away entirely, and it's created a really weird situation where, like, your build is not going to be effective, so you will have a travel fit and then and then a fighting fit on it. And at that point, it's like, why even have this module? Like, why even set this up? Because it's exactly the same gameplay.
Well, we used to do that though, right? I mean, early days of T3Cs and wormhole space, we had travel fits and we had fits that were battling. I mean, depending on what you were doing with it, right? I mean, it was a PvE and PvP fit.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, the idea of reconfiguring your T3Cs on the fly, I think, is very integral to their system. But my point is that it undermines, like I was saying, but it's actually a buff because more types of T3 cruisers get to use this thing. It's like, shut up. Any cruiser that's going to be using it is already going to be using the subsystem because you're not going to want to use it when you get to battle anyways, especially if you don't have the subsystem.
Exactly. It's for traveling only.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for travel only.
Womp womp. Anything else we want to talk about? We are over 2 hours. We're coming at 2.5 hours, which I think is more than enough for a day of conversation. Let's ask the question: what is there to do this weekend, guys? What is there to do this weekend?
Come to Wirashota and meet grinder your ships into us. That's a great idea. Please.
But stop by Otella first.
You're gonna love our gates.
So the event. The current event that you were saying is going pretty well, is going through the 18th. So that's what there is to do this weekend. If you haven't finished your event, if you want to make some money, the big winner of this event is low-sec hacking sites, for the record. But this is a really good way to make some money, honestly. It may not seem like such, but it's in the jackpots.
Yeah, they've gotten considerably rarer. That is true for the low-sec ones, though. So low-sec ones pay between about 30 to 50 million per site. It's a one-room hack. Very, very easy. One room, one can. But it does decloak you when you land on grids. So hunters out there, go set up in those. Kill some people. You definitely can. And I've seen some nightmarish stuff out there, so I always land at like 30 to 50 out, because you definitely don't want to drop on people at 0 in those. But 30 to 50 mil. I've even gotten 112 mil out of one of those cans, and they do drop skins. They're quite cool. I've already gotten through all my Capsuleer Day stuff. I already got the 400 points doing exclusively hacking, so I really enjoyed it. It's really good ISK, and it's very fun.
In addition to that, if you are already going to be in low-sec, or you want to do stuff in low-sec or more dangerous areas, or dabble with the newer stuff, while it is true that the reinforced carbon fibers have really kind of started to stabilize. So the R4 moon material, R4 moon mining, high-sec wormhole moon mining is now pretty profitable in a way that it wasn't prior to the industry changes. So, I know we've been turning on our moons and getting our programs up and running. So if you're interested in mining, especially mining in high-sec, all of the big mining organizations are definitely in full steam now that the reaction changes happened. But the gas huffing is still a little bit of an unknown to the EVE player base by and large, and the hacking sites in low-sec and high-sec, those components, the gas that can be found in low-sec and the hacking sites, the basic high-level info sites that have info shards, as well as ghost sites in all bands of space. That is the stuff that is currently dropping stuff that is still extremely valuable thanks to these industry changes. If you want more information, I recommend checking out Nth Dimensional's stream, YouTube, etc. Any other things going on this weekend that you can think of, you guys?
No, not really. I mean, we're just kind of waiting on CCP to do more stuff in Pochven. We did all of our crazy activities today, like the fight with Alexis Matari, the data shard, all that stuff with, all of this today was wild, honestly. I've been up and doing stuff for about 20 hours now.
Are they not coming back tomorrow or today? Is it still on?
No idea.
Okay.
It is worth noting that so on Friday during the Dread events, CCP Delegate Zero said that they weren't planning on doing anything that night to rest up. And I tweeted it, and I probably shouldn't have, but I threw in there and a great weekend. Specifically not implying or trying not to suggest that they were saying that, but I knew, in the back of my head, I was like, this could be implying that CCP is also saying that they're not going to do anything for the rest of the weekend, which they didn't say. And then I got punished for that because lo and behold, on Saturday, Dreads got dropped. So, there's a lot happening recently, and they do happen on weekends too. So keeping an eye on the forums, keeping an eye on that new NPC character, seeing if he shows up anymore. And of course, Chuckade is currently still at large again, and as the EOM event wraps up, that may may give us, they may do more as we get to the end of this event too. We don't know. I don't believe that they'll even begin to discuss the Stargate event until at least next Tuesday, which is after this event is finished. That seems to just make sense. And then I don't expect the Stargate event to start until next month, but it might be worth making sure to get people, like, at least start to think about which part and which side you want to be on, right? Do you want to disrupt a certain Stargate? Do you want to help produce a certain Stargate? Because these are probably going to be happening at the same time. You can't necessarily do them all at once. So you got to figure out what's important to you and start getting ready to do it when it's time. All right, let's give you guys a chance to pimp your stuff out or talk about whatever you want. We're going to start with Opus. Opus.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on. It's been a great show. I'm going to say Kybernaut Clay is recruiting. We're a close-knit group that lives in Kino. We'd love to have new members and love to hang out with new people. I also am the CEO of Eve Onion, which is Eve's premier satire news organization. We're always looking for new writers. You can see us at eveonion.com. And thanks for having me on the show.
Incredible job with Eve Onion. I have the image down there just because I wanted to show it off, and I have a link down at the bottom, I believe, on my stream. I love what you do for there. It's always hilarious and timely, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to pimp that out. And then Zeramus. Am I even pronouncing that right? It's Zeramus, right?
Yeah.
All right, great.
My name's Zeramus, but you call me Zero, friend.
Awesome. So Zero, pimp out your stuff.
Okay, let me pimp quickly. If you want to play in Pochven, but you maybe don't want to be a part of a large, super organized group like the String Beans, you're always welcome to come fly with Breadfleet. We're friends with everyone on this stream. We fly with Stribog, we fly with Kybernauts. Please feel free. Reach out to us. We love you guys. I'm also a candidate for CSM 16. Give me like your second or third vote if you have some room on your card. I know everybody's got their candidate that they love, that they're going to support enthusiastically, but if you got some room on there, I'm looking to represent the littler gangs in Pochven and beyond. So I love you, and thank you for having me on the show, Ash. It was fun to talk to you.
We actually have 2 CSM candidates, and thank you. It was good to have you too. Because Opus, you're not running, right?
No.
I don't have a clean sweep.
My personal viewpoints to CSM to run.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that's cool. So Zeramus and Maldavius. So Maldavius, you're running for CSM too. Why don't you pimp out your stuff?
Yeah, so I'm the alliance leader of Stribog Clade. We're the largest alliance inside of Pochven, so if you're looking for a more organized, large-scale sort of thing inside of Triglavian space, definitely come talk to us. If you want to apply for our alliance, you can apply to Stribog Proving. We have this, basically it's a feeder corp. People come in, they learn about Triglavian content there, they learn how to interact with our people, they move up in that, and then we have what's called a Proving Graduation, where they get to graduate out of that and then join one of the other subcorps inside of the alliance. It's a lot of fun, a lot of hazing, a lot of friendships are born out of that, and it's a really cool thing. It's a nice cultural thing that we get to have. Outside of that, I'm running for CSM 16. My website is maldavius.space, so you can find that here. I'm going to post it in chat. And basically, I've got quite a lot of ideas that are on there. I've already been giving a ton of those to CCP. I've been giving a ton of them to them throughout Invasion Phase 3. And yeah, it's one of the things that I've been working on quite a lot. Outside of the game, I've been a game developer now for about 16 years, so that's the experience that I'm bringing to the table in terms of CSM. I've done a lot of things in EVE, and I've made a lot of games over the years. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah, and I do still...
I have one more thing, though.
Yeah.
We also have low-sec Staingate in our alliance, so even though CCP is trying to build one, we already have it. Get owned.
Sue him. Take him court. Yeah, so... quick note, though, for Zero. By your own logic, like, bread is not good for you, and string beans are, so I'm not sure what your symbology is going. We might need to workshop that a little bit.
Well, actually, the name Bread Fleet is a take on the book Conquest of Bread by Peter Kropotkin, and it actually represents our, power to the people philosophy. It's not really about literal bread.
There you go. Well, you put it with string beans, so naturally.
Together we're a mighty sandwich.
Full course meal of trig. So, does that make the Kybernauts the meat of the puzzle?
Well, considering that most of these alliances and corporations spawned off from us originally, since we're the original Trig.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. Before this gets too ugly, I will say that I do need to have both of you guys on for your official CSM interview. But of course, having these kinds of things happening all the time and dragging you on for these things is getting in the way of that. But stay in touch
there's just a
in
lot
DMs,
going on.
and we'll get that worked out.
There's just a lot going on in Pochven, so it ends up making sense, getting on here and talking about all this stuff every day because there's constantly things going on in here. Oh, I will say one more thing too. If you're out in nullsec and you're bored, that's why I'm here. That's why we went to Pochven. That's why we did all this kind of stuff. So if you're out in some part of space and you'd find that there's nothing to do and there's not activity every day for you to be a part of, come to Pochven. Come join us, because there's literally no time of day where there's not some insane thing happening in this region. And because you can access everywhere else in space really easily, you can do whatever you want and still come home very easily.
Glorification of the fit, mortification of the unfit. It was good having you guys here. Thanks for coming on and talking about all the stuff that's been happening and helping decipher the mysteries of Pochven. It's been one of the things that we've been working on here for the last couple of weeks. And I'm really thankful that you guys are so forthcoming with information, given the fact that, I'm sure secrecy is an important aspect to at least part of it. I could definitely see how people like me coming in and telling everybody how to do all of the tricks isn't always the most advantageous to you guys. And I can definitely understand why you don't always be that happy with my science fleets roaming around in Pochven. But, I appreciate you coming onto my streams and being very... Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I don't mean to be
fleets
smart,
coming in definitely offer content to us. And, if we have to, beat up on them until they go back to CC, so be it.
But my point is, I do really, it's been a great conversation. And I think that's what this has all been about. So,
yeah.
I'm sure we'll be talking more soon. So this maybe it'll become a regular thing if you guys want it to be. I really like this idea of this vibe of having the three leaders. I think really works.
No, I really agree. I think it's actually quite cool. It's having people on and being able to talk about the region is really important because it is such a wild part of space and it is in that kind of state of flux where CCP is still working on it. So it is fun to talk about. It's not the same every day, and there's always something going on. And because of such high traffic, there is definitely room for change every single day. You never know what's going to happen.
You really? I still don't know what's happening, let alone what's going to happen.
I do, and it's a lot.
I mean, with that event today with the Caldari guy, like I don't know exactly what happened. We're gonna have to figure it out.
Well, we're living in the middle of it, so if you want to come figure it out as we do, then y'all come.
All right. On that note, I've been Ashtarothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about 2012, somewhere in there. And I'm here to put Eve into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you guys for watching the Eve Friday show. We will see you guys next week. And until then, I'll see you in space.